Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to all the participants. Thank you very much for taking time out. Let me deal with this. All right, thank you very much for taking time out attending this very, very important session on the Companies Act 2017. Mr. Amin Ali, thank you very much, Jawad. I've noticed there an echo. Can all of you confirm if you can hear us loud and clear without any echo? Just type it in your question answer box. Can you hear us loud and clear? Thank you, Ibrahim. The voice is breaking. It should be fine. But most of you are saying yes. Thank you very much. That's great. Very important webinar, and Mr. Amin and myself, we've been trying to schedule this for quite some time. However, I think this is the time when it is extremely important for us to run the webinar, and therefore Mr. Amin has taken time out from his very, very busy schedule to sit down with you and conduct this session for our entire membership and affiliates. As you all might know, that very recently SECP has been very active in reviewing the Companies Act and reviewing different SROs that were in place, a number of changes taking place that are going to have far-reaching consequences or repercussions on the profession generally, or on the businesses. Even this Companies Act has gone through a lot of debate, a lot of bashing, quote unquote, in the Senate, but now it has been approved and it is in shape. However, I think changes to the Companies Act in the form of SROs will continue to happen over a period of time. Let me very quickly introduce Mr. Amin Ali to you, then some housekeeping, and then I'll hand over to Mr. Amin Ali. I'm sure all of you have used this platform, the webinar platform that we call GoToWebinar, in the past. However, let me, for the benefit of those who are doing it for the first time, let me very quickly tell you how to use it. You will be able to see a navigation panel on your screens with an orange arrow at the top. You click on the arrow, the navigation pane expands. In that, the most important dialog is the questions dialog box. Okay? Anything that you want to ask of the trainer, you have to type it in the questions dialog box, send it to us, and myself and Saf, we are the moderators of the session. We will review the questions. If they are relevant, we'll put them up during the question and answer break, and Mr. Amin Ali will try to answer. Please make sure that you only send us your relevant questions during the question and answer break. Otherwise, it becomes a little difficult to keep a track of all the questions being asked. So I think from time to time, Mr. Amin Ali is going to announce a question and answer break. Right? It will be at that time, and we'll expect you to type in your questions. We will take them one by one. We'll try to answer all the questions, and as the time permits, and then we move on to the next topic. Mr. Amin has also discussed with us in detail that we will run 2 sessions on this. So since it is a very, very detailed topic, and to begin with, we're just taking one portion of it in this session, we've decided to run another webinar on another day in which we will extend on this session as well. A few more announcements. Number one, this session is being recorded. So if you miss any part of this session, don't worry. We will put up the recording, on our Vimeo channel in a couple of days' time, and you will be able to run it from there and revise any concepts that you may want to. So please do not be worried if you missed a concept. Just go back and watch the recording. I appreciate if rather than requesting the trainer from time to time to revise or review or repeat a concept, it would be better if you watch the recording. Right? Mr. Amin Ali will request you to not to repeat things too much, because we're short of time, 3 hours, we can only cover as much. So therefore, we suggest that you should view the recording of this session for any repeat questions that you may have. So I think with that, let me introduce Mr. Amin Ali to you. Mr. Amin Ali is a fellow ACCA member, a very senior member. He's been very, very active with various subcommittees in the past. He's currently an MNP member also. I'm sure all of you know what MNP is. I'll repeat it for those who don't. MNP stands for Members Network Panel. This is an advisory body of ACCA members in Pakistan. Mr. Amin Ali is a worthy member of that. And Mr. Amin Ali also is engaged with us in the governance subcommittee as the head of the subcommittee for non-banking institutions. So directly deals with SECP and its regulations, and all of that. So very, very relevant individual, very competent. Professionally, he is a partner at Harvard Hussain and is an audit partner, right, which indicates that he is also a fellow chartered accountant. Okay, also a fellow chartered accountant. But he's primarily a fellow chartered certificate accountant. So welcome, Mr. Amin. Thank you very much for taking time out. I will now hand it over to you. You can take it from here. Sorry, one last announcement, and that is, for benefit of most members, we'll try to keep the medium of this conversation bilingual. Mr. Amin will speak in English, but we'll also, from time to time, talk to you in Urdu as well, repeating those concepts for those who were more comfortable listening in Urdu. So, over to you, Mr. Amin. Thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Harun sir, for the very kind words and a nice introduction. Companies Act 2017, this is a very important piece of legislation that has been convened recently, and as we're all aware that it took more than 2 years, rather more than that, from the draft stage to the finalization stage. Intermittently, there was the Companies Act 2016, but then it was improvised further, and then the Companies Act 2017 was launched. Some content of the old Companies Ordinance 1984, which is almost a 33 years old piece of legislation, has remained in the Companies Act, but then there are major changes and numerous changes which deal with the listed companies and other sectors. Various new concepts like companies dealing with agriculture, or the free zone company, or Sharia compliant company, they have been introduced that we shall be looking in this presentation, in this webinar today. Before I start with my presentation, there are 2 or 3 things that I would like to discuss in the beginning. First of all, this is relatively a new law that has been introduced back in May 2017. So it has not even been 3 months since this has been introduced, and this is still passing through the stages of infancy, which means that SECP from time to time would be introducing new circulars, new regulations that would further improvise the piece of legislation, and that would actually explain those provisions in detail, because as we know that all the laws or ordinances, they are accompanied by rules. The rules relevant to Companies Act 2017, they are awaited, and once they come, there would be more clarity on various aspects of law. Second thing is that in my webinar and this presentation that I shall soon begin, at few points I have given a very plain narrative, and at others where I felt that a verbatim text from the Companies Act 2017 would be more suitable, I have copied that and I have put it over here. There were certain discussions with my colleagues, with my friends, and the corporate department in-house in our firm to understand and discuss various aspects. So most of it is based on what we have learned over these 2 or 3 months and our understanding on the same. But definitely with the passage of time, as more and more information is convened from the Commission, this understanding is going to be elaborated. We know that I have been informed that there is a wide audience who is attending this webinar, and which basically comprises lots of seasoned SCCA members as well as young affiliates who have just started their journey in this accountancy world. Keeping into the context of both of them, at certain places I have summarized very simple provisions of law, but where I thought that in the best interest of those people who want to understand and have more clarity, I've explained a bit more. So bear with me the length of the presentation. I just begin it. Previously, what I planned was a presentation that contained 5 topics. But as and when I prepared it and as and when various things developed, I focused it to 2 areas. Provisions regarding the financial statements and then the directors and chief executive. And there is a reason behind that. The reason is this, that being associate or fellow members of ACCA and other people who have joined us today out of their interest, our prime work deals with the preparation of the financial statements. Therefore, the provisions that relate to the preparation of the financial statement, their filing with the commission, or any other relevant clause of law, I thought that should have been the focus. And then as far as the directors and chief executive is concerned, this is that part of the law from where mostly the apex people in the composition of a company, they put up questions upon. So therefore, I thought that these 2 areas are the most relevant ones to begin with my presentation. मेरा अपना जो ज़ाती तौर पे ख्याल है, अगर मैं कंपनीज एक्ट की बात करता हूँ, तो I can look at or I can see that this act can be divided into 3 areas. First, dealing with the financial world. Second, which is more procedural, and third, which is more specified. Procedural in terms of meetings, in terms of filing, in terms of compliance requirement, audits and investigations. I have not yet covered that. And third, a very specified area like preparing prospectuses, issuing share capital, and then winding up a company, etc. Those are very specified, specialized areas. So in this webinar, I've tried to cover those areas which are basically dealt by the accountants in practice. The second extension to this webinar that would also be covering the remaining area that I think every accountant should know. The specialized areas may be dealt in later. I begin my presentation with the definitions. When I analyzed the law, section 1 and section 2 of it, there were a few important observations that I made. There were only 4 definitions of the Companies Ordinance 1984 that have not been reproduced in Companies Act 2017. Then most of the definitions, they were either improvised, amended a bit, or that remain unchanged. And then there were a few concepts which were fully elaborated that were previously not that much elaborated in Companies Ordinance 1984 that have been taken up to the definition level. My feel to this is that when we start to read a law, that definition sets up the tone. That sets up how to read that law or how to infer about any clause or any section of that. So it's important that we understand these definitions and go on. And down the slide, I shall be covering one more thing. Companies Act 2017 has introduced another section which states that any definition or any word which is not clear over here that needs to be referred to in the Securities Act 2015 as well, which means that now it has become important that whenever we are dealing with any company, we have to see both the Companies Act 2017, and if we feel there is anything which is not directly addressed over here, we would have to refer to the Securities Act 2015 as well. So this is an important thing. The presentation would be in front of you. If I deal with this, there are a few basic definitions that have remained unchanged or almost the same. Articles, we all know that it's articles of association, and articles of association is that basic document which deals with the internal day-to-day activities which the company goes with, like elections, accounts, and audit, things like that. Then there's central depository. With the introduction of Securities Act, the reference to central depository, it has been streamlined. So major change nahi hai. Chief Executive ki definition, commission, which means the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan, a company which has been incorporated under the Companies Act or the previous company laws. Then the companies limited by shares, by guarantee, these remain the same. As far as the court is concerned, the jurisdiction of the court which deals with the company, that is that of the High Court bench. Previously, it was completely included in the section. Now, this has already been included in the definition as well. Then there is debenture and director, same definitions. The list goes on. Financial year, which means that part of the year for which the company prepares its accounts. In Pakistan, normally this is 1st of July to 30th June next year. However, foreign companies or the subsidiaries of MNCs, etc., they sometimes adopt a special year which ends on maybe 30th April or 30th September or 31st of December. That's also covered in that. Listed on the securities exchange. A listed company is that, and a listed security is that security which is being traded on the stock exchange, जैसे debentures वगैरह हो सकते हैं. Memorandum means memorandum of association, which we all know has conventionally it used to include 4 or 5 things. जिसमें name clause था, memorandum clause था, registered office, then the share capital and the division of the share capital into various denominations of shares. This has been changed. Mudarba and Mudarba companies, the reference remains to the Mudarba Ordinance and Mudarba Rules, previous Companies Act. If we look into the Companies Ordinance 1984, तो जो उससे पहला preceding law था, which was Companies Act 1913 and then so on, उसको refer करता था और अब ये refer करता है Companies Ordinance 1984 को. Private company, a company secretary, definition is the same, but the reference to the qualification and experience has been added. Then there is a public company, the registrar remains the same, a scheduled bench, share or special resolution, all the definitions are the same. This is the second part which deals with the amended definitions. कुछ changes इसमें ज़्यादा important हैं, जिसमें for example associated companies हैं. अब if you look at associated companies, तो the definition makes it very clear that any company which has got an independent director on the board of two or more than 2 companies, those 2 or more than 2 companies do not become associated by virtue of that independent director. Body corporate, now it includes a company incorporated under the Companies Act or any company law, previous law, or any statutory body declared as a body corporate in the relevant statute. That means दूसरे acts and ordinances के लिए भी एक थोड़ा सा आगे कि वो भी companies एक्ट के अंडर डील हो सकेंगे अगर उनके रेलेवेंट स्टैट्यूट्स में इसको डिक्लेयर कर दिया जाता है, जैसे पुरानी कॉर्पोरेशंस हुआ रहा है. अब इसमें बुक एंड पेपर और बुक और पेपर, इसकी डेफिनेशन को बेसिकली स्प्लिट है. इसको अगर हम डॉक्यूमेंट को देखें 2 में, इट मींस बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट दैट हैव बीन टेकन आउट ऑफ दिस डेफिनेशन and defined separately, and cost accounting records and minutes and registers have been included in the definition. Previously जो cost accounting records हैं and minutes and registers हैं, वो book and paper की definition में नहीं थे, तो this is a new area that has improved the definition. And when it comes to document, it refers to summons, orders, other legal process in context of Companies Ordinance 1984 or any other law removed. While books and papers, returns, certificate, deeds, forms, registers, prospectuses, communications, financial statements, I'll be using FS for financial statement, or records maintained by FI financial institutions or its customers. Now these all comprise the definition of document. Financial institution, the definition has been amended by 2 ways. State Bank of Pakistan has been taken out of this definition, and the branches of financial institutions that are outside Pakistan that have been included in the definition of financial institution. Officers, the definition now includes directors, chief executives, CFO, the company secretary, and other authorized officers. Prescribed, it means by the federal government. Prospectus, reference has been made to the Securities Act. Redeemable capital, now sukuks are also added into this. The definition of securities has been rationalized, giving reference to the Securities Act 2015. Then stock exchange, again the definition has been rationalized. And then table A. These further 5 definitions, I'm quickly passing through that because I believe that these are some of those areas which we are all well aware of. However, if there is anything at the end of those, you can put on your questions on these definitions. These 5 definitions that have been taken out, and this includes existing company, form, number, participatory redeemable capital, and register. These 5 definitions are no more a part of the Companies Act 2017. Now this is the important part. Some definitions are pretty simple. I'll be rapidly just going through them, and then there are certain definitions which need much of our answers. Advocate, the reference has been made to the Bar Councils Act. Alter or alteration, it means the adding or omitting anything without destroying any particular scheme, etc. Authorized capital or nominal capital, it's simple. Banking company, referred to in the Banking Companies Ordinance. And here is the beneficial ownership of shareholders. Now this is a new definition, and we shall be looking to this definition and the contents addressed through this definition, as this is going to impact the disclosures and the financial statements. Now, ownership, जो beneficial ownership है, उसको ये कहता है कि it's an ownership of securities whether beneficially owned, held or controlled. आपके अपने पास है, you own them, या आप उन्हें control कर रहे हैं, या आपने उन्हें hold किया हुआ है, whether directly or indirectly. और इस substantial shareholder जिसके पास 10% से ज़्यादा है, 10% threshold has been defined. अब आप इन securities को खुद hold करें directly through your spouse, through your children, both minor as well as stepchildren, तो आप beneficial ownership कहलाए जाएंगे. This is important because the 4th schedule to the new Companies Act 2017, it requires the disclosure of beneficial ownership, and there is another section, if I'm not mistaken, section 459, which also requires that the beneficial ownership needs to be disclosed by a shareholder. So uske liye this definition is important. And if we look at the first proviso, which deals with the control, provided that control in relation to securities mean the power to exercise controlling influence over the voting powers attached thereto. जो एक अच्छी चीज मैंने observe की in this Companies Act कि at various places all those definitions that were included in IFRS etc. जिसमें control की definition है, that has also been referred to over here, ताकि वो जो चीजें हैं वो streamline हो जाएं. Down the webinar you will observe कि अब it has been made clear कि all the listed companies they have to comply with the regulations of IFRS, और बड़ा categorically कह दिया गया है कि in the treatment of transactions with related parties we have to deal with all those requirements that are set by standards. तो इसीलिए इसमें भी जो control की definition दी गई है ये उसी context में ही दी गई है. Board means board of directors, books of account, chartered accountant, then CFO, cost and management accountant. Simple definitions. And e-service means provided by the Commission for lodging or filing electronic document. इस Companies Act 2017 में जहाँ जहाँ पर भी टेक्नोलॉजी का यूज किया जा सकता है, the Commission has appreciated and encouraged the use of that. So the definition of postal ballot now it also includes through e-manner, the filing thing, there's lodging of the document, everything like that. वो e-service के ऊपर आ रहे हैं and that has been introduced. Likewise, अभी हम आगे देखेंगे कि there's a very important clause कि अब जो financial statements हैं along with their physical filing, they also need to be filed electronically to the Commission and the registrar, and that has to be maintained over the website as well. इसको mandatory करते जा रहे हैं, तो e-service की इसीलिए definition has been fully described in this. The employee stock option scheme, it has been introduced over here. Laws इसके पहले से भी थे, Companies Act के अंदर ये इसको ले आए हैं. Now it means कि वो जो सारी options आप directors को या कुछ लोगों को देते हैं. We know that in various companies in Pakistan which are government owned, वहाँ पर employee stock options आहिस्ता आहिस्ता ये उस ambit के अंदर लेके आ रहे हैं. Therefore, the laws relating to employee stock option scheme and the definition that has been included over here. अब इसमें बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट डेफिनेशन इन्होंने डाल दी है एक्सपर्ट की. एक्सपर्ट की डेफिनेशन हम आगे देखेंगे और इसको सेक्शन 460 के अंदर भी इन्होंने फुली एक्सप्लेन किया है. Now it means any engineer, any actuary, any chartered accountant, and cost and management accountant, or any person who is authorized to issue a certificate. ये इसलिए भी जरूरी हो गया है क्योंकि अभी जब हम आगे 4th schedule में जाके financial statements को देखेंगे, over here it is explicitly said that if there is any valuation required, that valuation is to be done by an expert. और उसी तरीके से if there are some non-cash transactions with directors, before that transaction is executed, the value of that asset being exchanged, sold or purchased to or from a director, that needs to be valued through an expert. इसलिए the definition of expert has been included over here. Other than a specific financial year, if the commission asks you to prepare a financial statement pertaining to any period of time, that period would be referred to as financial period. Financial statements, this definition has been rationalized in line with the requirements of IAS 1. Now it includes a balance sheet, a profit and loss account, or an income expenditure account, statement of changes in equity, a comprehensive income भी इसमें शामिल है, and then statement of cash flows as well, notes and comparatives, etc. Now these have all been included into the definition of financial statements. Foreign company, previously in Companies Ordinance 1984, the requirements were given in section 450, but now that has also been included in the definition in the company sector over here. And it has been made very clear that whether there's a liaison office, whether working physically, whether working electronically, through an agent, or through any means, that would be included in the foreign company. Government, as far as this Companies Act is concerned, it includes both the provincial government or the federal government until and unless that particular section of the law clarifies that which government it is referring to. Holding company and subsidiary company, this is an important definition. इसको ज़्यादा contextualize किया है subsidiary के reference में. And now the subsidiary company is that company where the control of the composition of the board, this is being controlled, or where more than one half of the voting securities are being controlled or exercised by a company. The exercising company is going to be the holding company, and the company who is being controlled shall be the subsidiary companies. But over here, the Commission has further elaborated the definition and said that the numbers of layers of subsidiaries, it may be notified. इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि if there is a holding company and it has got a subsidiary which in fact has got another subsidiary and then another subsidiary, so the number of subsidiaries that can be limited. The Commission may limit it. And over here in this definition, the company means a body corporate as well. Mortgage or charge, where a lien is created. Net worth, where the total assets exceed the total liabilities. Net worth की definition भी इसलिए डाली गई because हम through the presentation इस चीज को देखेंगे कि the powers of the directors when we reach that part, तो वहाँ पर before the disposal decision is taken, the net worth has been referred to. So keeping in line ये definition भी इसके अंदर आ गई. Notification published in the official gazette. Then ordinary resolution which is passed by a simple majority of all the members who were supposed to vote or were present over there and were eligible to vote and voting either in person, through proxy or through a postal ballot. ये सारी चीजें इन्होंने इसमें डाल दी हैं. Postal ballot भी definition आ गई है. Postal ballot की definition से what we perceive that the norm of conducting a meeting and the way voting is done, that is going to have a significant impact. Voting by post or through any electronic mode, subject to the provision of the Articles of Association or else as provided by the Companies Act 2017. So this is the new definition, and down the series when we reach that procedural part where the voting and where the postal ballot is concerned, this would be of relevance over there. Definition of promoter has been introduced between subscriber to a memorandum of association, who are named as such in the prospectus, who has got control over the affairs of the company, or on whom advice the board of directors operates. आगे दो definitions हैं, public interest company है और एक public sector company है. Public interest company, in this Companies Act, basically what has happened that clearly third schedule has been introduced, and third schedule has properly defined the types of companies. Now there are public interest companies, there are medium-sized companies, there are small-sized companies, and with all those companies it has been cleared that what part of law means that reporting framework is applicable on them. and then certain criteria have been defined that whether this company should be a public interest company, a public sector company, or a small or medium-sized company. If you look into this, the public interest company is a public sector company or a public utility or similar company carrying on the business of essential public service. A public utility company, just to exemplify, we have got WAPRA, though it's an authority, very strictly speaking, but a public utility की company है. PTCL public utility की company हम इसे कह सकते हैं. Holding assets in a fiduciary capacity for a broad group of outsiders, such as a bank, insurance company, securities broker, dealer, pension funds, mutual funds, or investment banking entity. So, इसकी एक implication ये भी है कि if there is a company that actually works in any of these specified businesses, irrespective of its size, that would be dealt with under a specific reporting standard. जैसे कि अभी जो थर्ड ऑर्डिनेंस शेड्यूल है वो कहता है कि in order to determine whether a company is a small or medium or large, whatever the size is, we have to deal with three criteria: the number of employees, the share capital, and then the revenue. तो जब हम इस definition की बात करेंगे तो that means those criteria would be क्या उससे कहना चाहिए कि this definition is going to override those criteria. तो फिर अगर एक छोटा सा भी brokerage house होगा तो इसकी reporting उसी schedule के तहत होगी जो कि इसको डील करता है, which may be IFRS and not the IFRS for medium-sized companies or the standard for small-sized companies. Having such number of members holding ordinary shares as may be notified and holding assets exceeding such values as may be notified. बार-बार notified का इसमें मतलब आ रहा है तो इसमें यही है कि जब official gazette में further changes आएंगी, the definition of public interest company may be changed. So for this, we'll have to have a vouch on what the official gazette says. Then there's the public sector company, whether private and public. So they have made it very clear that इसमें limited liability आपकी through private है या फिर public means है. अब that is not going to be the question. It may include either of them, which is directly or indirectly controlled or beneficially owned. How come? Not less than 51% of the voting securities rests with the government. यानी अगर आपकी गवर्नमेंट किसी भी किस्म की एक कंपनी बना के 51% से ज्यादा वोटिंग राइट्स अपने पास रख लेती है या किसी भी तरीके से उसका कंट्रोल हासिल कर लेती है, एंड देन अपॉन सर्टेन नोटिफिकेशन दैट वुड बी अ पब्लिक सेक्टर कंपनी. अ पब्लिक सेक्टर कंपनी बनते ही इसका दूसरा मतलब ये होगा कि the code of corporate governance, which is relevant for a public sector company, that will automatically come into effect, because this Companies Act says that there is going to be a framework of corporate governance and the companies have to abide by that. And if we see the public sector company, then the code of corporate governance is already over there. That means कि अब उसको automatically उसी framework के अंदर आ जाना है, and then all the rules of public procurement, of accountability, or whatever it deals with, those are all applicable on that. और उसमें आगे प्रोवाइजो भी है कि where the majority of directors may be appointed by the commission on the board, वो भी एक public sector company होगी. The only exception is stock exchange. Then there are register of companies to be maintained by the registrar, regulations, rules, Sharia compliant company. This Companies Act has introduced a new section which deals with the Sharia compliant companies, which means that all those companies which are complying with the requirements of Sharia and their securities are complying with the requirements of Sharia, and their auditors and their the officers, everyone passes through the fit and proper test of Sharia compliant. Sharia compliant इसलिए भी जरूरी है that if we recall, I think it was back last year in September that the commission introduced a circular which said that all those companies who are Sharia compliant companies need to declare it, and then there was a certain parameter defined about that. If it's going to be a Sharia compliant company, that means the avenues for Sharia and the Sharia securities that would be widened up. But if again we get into detail of this particular section to which it relates, it has been clarified over there that a Sharia compliance company, a banking company, would not fall under this definition. It would rather fall under the definition of Sharia compliance governance framework, which has been introduced by the State Bank of Pakistan. तो यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा देखना होगा कि other than a banking company, whether it's a Sharia compliant company or not. A single member company law पहले से ही था, definition has been added, specified, the definition of turnover has been added. If we look at the Income Tax Ordinance 2001, the definition of turnover is already contained over there. And for very practical purposes, while looking at the financial statements, we take the definition of turnover from over there, but it has also been introduced over here in the Companies Act 2017. The aggregate value of sale, supply, or distribution of goods, or on account of services rendered, or both, net of discounts, if any, held by the company during a financial year, which means you'll be showing up the gross figure of the sale, you'll be lessening up all the discounts and sales tax, and then there would be the turnover for this purpose. Unlimited company, valuer, a valuer registered with the commission, then the voting right, a wholly owned subsidiary. These are further definitions that have been added. This was that slide that I was referring to earlier, and I've just pasted the text over here. The words and expressions used and not defined in the Companies Act 2017 were defined in Securities Act, or the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan Act, or the Central Depositories Act, shall have the meaning respectively assigned to them in these acts. So that means compositely, whenever we are making up any research, or when we are reaching any decision, or when we are looking at the application or interpretation of any special section or clause, we'll have to refer to all these four pieces of legislation together: Companies Act, Securities Act, SNE Act, and then Central Depositories Act. This was part of definitions. If there is any particular question that you say that you want to ask, please put up your question over there. I've just set the tone, and this part of the presentation, I know it was more of an academic nature, but this was important because these definitions are the ones that we shall be dealing in the rest of the presentation. This is a very important definition, section 479. Mostly in the Companies Act 2017, what they have done is that previously for every section, the penalty was different. And from section to section, the penalty varied. For example, it varied to from 200 rupees per day to 5 million rupees. But what they have done is, now they have defined the levels. That what sort of contravention a company or an officer of the company is making. If it is going to be a level 1 contravention, that means a fixed penalty of 25,000 rupees and a daily penalty of up to 500 rupees. This is not a full amount, this is up to, which means that the commission or the registrar or either one of them may impose a penalty up to this amount. Mostly level 1 are taken up by the registrar, and the level 3 they are taken up by the commission. Then the level 2 penalties are up to 500,000 rupees fixed with 1,000 rupees daily. And then at level 3 this is 100 million rupees fixed with up to 500,000 rupees daily. So any penalty of any non-compliance may be levied accordingly. We have done the definition part or the first part. There are a few questions. Let's take them one by one.
Okay. There are some very basic questions. So there are some and some irrelevant questions also, but I ask this time. Next time I suggest people should ask relevant questions only. Is there going to be a change in the UK ordinance too? UK companies ordinance? Not related at all. All right, let's try some other question. You just mentioned level 1 and 3. Khurram Rafiq is asking what is meant by level 1 and 3.
Depending upon the non-compliance of any section, आप इसको यूँ समझ लें कि अगर आप कोई गलती करते हैं तो उस गलती की कितनी सजा हो सकती है. अगर आपकी गलती minor nature की है, you might be penalized with a level 1 penalty. But if you have made a gross negligence, it can be up to level 3. So from every section, they have defined that contravention of this section would be itna halka ya itna zyada.
Abdul Basit Ladha has two questions to ask. The first one is video voting allowed for private companies? And let me ask the second question as well. He's saying which level is delay in accounts and board/general meetings?
Which
level?
Which level
is delay in accounts or delay in board meetings?
Okay. Basically, as we go forward, जो penalties हैं account filing की और directors की meetings की, that we shall be covering down in this presentation, but other filing की penalties that are not being covered in the session today.
Okay. Muhammad Faizan Dar is asking who is to pay the penalty as per section 479?
Depends. It may be officer, it may be the company. Because if, for example, any director has done anything or any officer has done anything in his personal capacity, he would be levied that penalty. But if it is a negligence, so maybe the company have to pay that penalty, and this has been made clear in every section. Who is going to pay that?
Okay. Muhammad Bakir is asking, we have different penalties in different sections. Is it like different penalties for CEOs, directors, failure to comply with notices, etc.?
Yes. Mostly every section has defined its contravention penalty, and once I move on with the presentation, I shall be dealing with what is the level of penalty over here and who is going to pay that penalty.
Okay. Muhammad Zishan Hafiz is asking how to decide the level. It's too subjective.
No, the Companies Act is prescribing that this is the level of non-compliance of this particular section.
Okay. Mumtaz Hassan is asking, please let me know about Sharia principles as described in 264.
वो law कहता है as may be prescribed. If we actually read the language of the law, so it first of all says a Sharia compliant company, then it goes on to say that security of a Sharia compliant company, and then it says that all the officers and auditors, etc., who pass the fit and proper test, and सबके आगे लिखा हुआ है as may be prescribed. So that means that in the days to come, through other regulations, either it would be defined or the reference may be made to other. मैं इसको यूं भी exemplify करूं कि अगर हम मुदारबाज की बात करें तो मुदारबा क्योंकि already Sharia compliant होता है, and SECP has already issued a very long circular regarding that, जिसमें इन सब की एक्टिविटीज के बारे में बताया हुआ है. तो maybe either that part of the legislation is referred or a fresh piece of legislation may be introduced.
Okay.
अभी नहीं है लेकिन.
Okay, Mohammed Bilal Mahmood is asking who's included in authorized officers/compliance officers. Who's included?
Achha. If you look at the Companies Act 2017, it only gives the definition of officer, which means a CEO, a CFO, director, company secretary, और दूसरों के बारे में कहता है as specified may be. जो आप compliance officer की बात कर रहे हैं, if I'm not mistaken, SECP introduced another auditor reporting compliance regulation back somewhere in mid-June 2017. उसमें जो second last report का format था, उसमें compliance officer की बात थी. इस act के अंदर अभी तो नहीं है. So maybe when that comes into force, because that is still at the draft stage, so the compliance officer को भी ये कुछ बताना शुरू कर दें.
Abdul Basit is saying is video voting permitted or not?
Is video voting permitted or not? Very frankly, at the moment I have not covered that. That's a specified separate area. I can answer it to you later.
Okay. Raja Newman is asking, please give some examples of offences under each level. We need to ask too many questions on levels. Do you think?
Okay. For example, if you have circularized your financial statement and the contents in it, they were not fully compliant, maybe this is under section contravention level 1. Or where it comes to, for example, if there is if the company is making political contributions, तो political contributions की जो penalty है, that is under level 3 I think, 2 or 3 इस तरीके से है. जबकि उसके साथ एक और penalty है making gifts in the AGM. That penalty has been reduced to level 1. तो previous ordinance से इस पे देखें तो उसमें हर section में लिखा हुआ होता था either an imprisonment may be imposed, or a fixed fine may be imposed, or a daily penalty may be imposed, or all of them. उसको उन्होंने इसमें कर्टेल कर दिया है. स्पेसिफिक पेनल्टीज अब भी हैं, लेकिन ज्यादातर रेफर कर दिया है, और सेक्शन बाय सेक्शन आप आगे देखेंगे ये आ रही है.
Okay, is it Chaudhary is asking basic question saying when is this company that going to take effect?
This is effective, very much effective. अच्छा, आज एक और चीज हुई है. The commission has basically issued another notification, and it has said that all the companies whose year end is 30th June 2017, for their financial reporting currently, they would continue to use Companies Ordinance 1984 and all the rules made thereunder. अगर आप उससे कंफ्यूज करें तो that is only for the time being and only to take care of the reporting difficulties. Otherwise, this is very much an applicable law.
Okay, Samia Masood, who's our finance executive, who's listening to the session, is asking a question related to ECC. He's saying, how is the Companies Act 2017 going to impact NPOs? Applicability, changes, governance, deadlines. It's a very detailed question. So, Samia, maybe you can have a consultation session with, sorry, a commercial conversation session with Mr. immediately after this session. Very briefly, if you can make an answer to it. For not-for-profit organizations.
देखिए, जो not-for-profit organizations हैं, तो constantly under the radar of SECP. And जैसे अभी मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंटीरियर के दूसरे सर्कुलर्स भी आ रहे हैं regarding the expenditure level and whatsoever, तो चीजें streamline ही हो रही हैं, and filing requirements for all the companies almost this is the same. अभी इसमें कोई बहुत डिटेल जनरलिटी के अंदर कोई ज्यादा चेंज नहीं है. स्पेसिफिक डिटेल्स हैं, वो we can cover to that separately.
Taqir Hussain is asking, please explain e-services in the context of Companies Act. E-services.
I think for that it's this is again a basic definition, which means provide e-service provided by the commission for lodging or filing electronic document. अगर हम इसको देखें तो usually companies used to file their Form A, Form 29, and then companies not having share capital guarantee limited, Form B. So previously both of them were available to be, they were allowed to be filed both physically, manually, or through electronically. But with the ambit and with going on, they have strictly came onto electronic mode. It was not as explicitly discussed previously in Companies Ordinance 1984, but now this has been explicated over here that if there is a document lodging or filing service to be made by the commission, that would be e-service. So this, that as far as the definition is concerned, it comprises two things: electronic filing and lodging.
There are too many questions coming in. We'll just spend 5 more minutes on questions and then we'll go
Sure.
keep track. Umar Singh has asked 2 questions. Number 1, if government directors are less than 50%, will the company be public sector company? And number 2, which is related, difference between public interest company and public sector company.
Okay. अच्छा, इसमें पहला था डायरेक्टर्स आर लेस देन 50%. अब इसमें एक चीज और भी है, along with the directors, what about control? A and B, what about the voting power? क्या वो भी 50% से कम है या ज्यादा है? I think अभी तीनों चीजें we have to contextualize for a very specific question. For example, if the government only holds in a company say 20% shares, then it means that if we look at the particular criteria for appointment of directors, the board representation भी उतनी ही होगी. And the company through the government over here, if we assume, can indirectly control that company. Like मैं exemplify करता हूँ A Limited. A Limited में government of Punjab, for example, has got 20% shares. But through some other shareholders or companies, the government of Punjab is able to control, say, 35% more. Then it means that directly or indirectly the control has been established. अब यहाँ पर this is my interpretation. the question does not remain only of the appointment of directors. We have to see the voting power directly and indirectly and control as well. Then we can establish कि इसको कैसे हम define कर सकते हैं. You can share some practical example with all these three criteria. So I can answer. दूसरा क्या question था?
Second was about difference between public interest and public sector.
Okay. I have opened the definition over here. अगर हम एक बारी पहले definition देख लें फिर इस पे हम communicate कर लेते हैं. Public interest company जो सी है basically if we move on to third schedule, उसने एक broader outline बताई है. Public interest company में सारी companies शामिल हो जाती हैं, जिसमें public sector company भी है, listed company भी है. And if we look at the range, इसके अंदर it may be a public sector company, it may be a public utility company, or it may be that company which holds assets in a fiduciary capacity, whether it be banking or a brokerage or an insurance or whatever. अगली दो चीजें जो सी हैं वो अभी ओपन छोड़ी गई हैं. Number of members holding ordinary shares to be notified and holding assets in exceeding such value as may be notified. अगर इन दो को छोड़ते हैं तो public interest company is that company which may be a public sector company or holding asset in a fiduciary capacity or a public utility company. हम इन तीन को public interest कहेंगे, लेकिन if you go to the public sector company, तो public sector company के अंदर जो question आता है वो directly आता है control का, कि it may be public or private. That means आपने किसी भी तरीके से इनको incorporate कराया, that is not the key thing. The key thing is कि this is being controlled, beneficially owned, there is a voting power of more than 50%, and or the government has got the power to appoint directors. यहाँ पे जहाँ पे कंट्रोल का एलिमेंट आ रहा है तो उसे पब्लिक सेक्टर कंपनी के साथ लेके चल रहा है, लेकिन यहाँ पे कंट्रोल का एलिमेंट नहीं है तो उसे पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट कंपनी कह के चल रहा है. फॉर एग्जांपल, लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल अ कंपनी मे बी द साइज ऑफ अ बिग प्रोडक्शन जायंट जो कि a range of चीजें बना रही है. Now that may be included in a public interest company. But our corporations over here, जैसे Waka is a big giant, Pakistan Railways is another big giant, and then there are various corporations and authorities जहाँ पे control establish हो रहा है. Those are public sector companies if notified through their relevant legislation.
I'm sure one will clear now. Zain bin Tariq is asking, is there any change in information of company? Information of company? As you mentioned earlier, there is no change in AOA and MOA.
No, definition remained the same of article of association or memorandum of association, but there has been a major changes when we are to incorporate a company. जैसे memorandum के बारे में अभी आ गया कि अभी एक objective specific clause के तहत बन सकता है. The size of memorandum उसके बारे में अभी कुछ बात कर रहे हैं. तो incorporation का जो secretarial procedural तरीका है, I'm not dealing with that. I'm also only saying the definition remains the same. There are, however, procedural changes for memorandum and articles.
Honorable Jabbar is asking whether a company having foreign shareholding is also reportable under section 452, or only officers and substantial shareholders are supposed to report to a company.
This is one of a very, what should I use the word, that section which is being talked upon a lot. The law says if a substantial shareholder who is a Pakistan national, and then after the comma, if I'm not mistaken, it says whether it's got a dual nationality, and then comma closes and says it needs to file its particulars with the company, and then the company with the commission on the form specified. तो इसमें आपकी foreign या local का ताल्लुक नहीं है. The key thing is if you are a Pakistan national and if you've got that holding, you need to disclose it.
The next question is Syed Nazim Abbas. He's saying, as per the company ordinance 1984, a listed/PL company must have separate audit firms in its internal and external audit function. Is it so in this ordinance as well? Which section relates to it?
अच्छा.
the appointment of auditors, external and internal.
अच्छा, इसमें basically this is not covered in today's webinar, but मैं वैसे आपको बताता हूँ. If you are a listed company, अब जरा हम framework की बात कर लेते हैं. If you are a listed company, then there is a separate handbook issued by the stock exchange, which is applicable on the listing company, that gives a series of services which an external auditor cannot perform. तो वहां से हमें ये पता चलता है कि एक एक्सटर्नल ऑडिटर इंटरनल ऑडिट नहीं करेगा. अच्छा, ये फर्दर द कोड ऑफ कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस फॉर लिस्टेड कंपनीज दैट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ दैट आल्सो प्रोहिबिट्स इट. इसके साथ जो हमारे लिए दूसरी गाइडिंग प्रिंसिपल है, वो गाइडिंग प्रिंसिपल हमारे पास है आईफैक, इंटरनेशनल फेडरेशन ऑफ अकाउंटेंट्स का कोड ऑफ एथिक्स एज adopted by or ICAP and applicable in Pakistan. अब उसके अंदर देयर इज अ सीरीज के which are these services which may cause a conflict, और जो कि आपको अडॉप्ट नहीं करनी चाहिए, वहां पर हमें प्रोहिबिट किया जाता है. अभी तक इस लॉ के अंदर मेरी नजर से ऐसा कोई सेक्शन नहीं गुजरा जो आपको क्लियरली कहे कि आप ये काम करेंगे, ये काम ना करें. जो अभी मेरी आज का वेबिनार में जिन दो सेक्शंस पे मैं स्पेसिफिकली फोकस कर रहा हूँ, उसमें से कोई चीज नहीं है.
Continuing to ask questions. I'm sorry, but there's still a lot of questions, and I'm sure it will be good if we can answer these questions.
Sure.
But wherever you feel we should cut off and move on, it's your call. Okay. Or wherever you feel the questions are becoming irrelevant, I think you can drop off and move on.
Sure.
Right. This question is from Muhammad Waleed Fazl, saying if company A is a subsidiary of another company and someone has more than 10% share in company A, is he still the beneficial owner as he has no major control over that company?
Now, company is subsidiary and company is subsidiary of, say, company B. Now, shareholder is of company A only and he holds 10% shares in company A. तो किसका beneficial shareholding की बात करें, A की या B की?
He has mentioned that.
For example,
beneficial owner as
If you see, if he is a 10% shareholder of company, definitely is a beneficial. उसका shareholding में वो आ जाएगा.
But company B का beneficial owner नहीं होगा.
इसका कैसे?
Subsidiary. Taqir Hussain is asking to disclose beneficial ownership. Is that a responsibility of shareholder or the company?
ये section 450 उसी context में
you see.
उसका specific section, if I recall, वो कहता है कि the shareholder is to disclose it to the company, because if, for example, I am a shareholder of a company in the US, how would the company in Pakistan be acknowledged that I am a shareholder of a US-based company? So I would have to disclose it to my company that I am your shareholder having so much shares, and I hold this much share holding in such and such foreign company.
Manabul Jubair is asking, is it necessary and is there any time frame for adopting table A as company's article of association? Time frame for making principal line of business as first clause of memorandum. Are these all relevant to the material we have covered? I think we're going beyond, right? So relevant to the material covered. If it is to come, we'll wait.
I think if we can hold on our questions of incorporation of a company and its article and memorandum a bit, because if you can focus a lot on 4th and 5th schedule and the various minute changes which have been made in the financial statement portion, that would be more relevant. लेकिन अगर हम इसको plainly मैं आंसर कर दूं कि as the Companies Act is already adopted, so the table is very much applicable. अब अगर उसके बाद going forward there is an existing company and under table A or under the new clauses of the new sections of Companies Act 2017, if it wants to make changes, so definitely it can go on.
Okay, I think we stop here. We continue with our session. Just a couple of announcements, as there are too many people asking this question. Please note that this session is being recorded, which means you will be able to access the recording of this entire session. If there is any concept that needs clarification, please go through the recording once again and you'll be able to watch it as many times as you want. Number two, The presentation that Mr. Amin Ali is running will be shared with you after the session. So yes, the presentation will be shared with all of you. Number 3, participation certificates for CPD evidence will also be shared by tomorrow with all the participants. Okay. I repeat, the certificates for participation will also be shared with you after the session. Yes, the slides, like I said, the presentation will be shared after the session with him. Okay, the rest of the questions, since we have to move on now, we spent too much time on questions, we will continue. If there are certain questions that are very important, burning and related to the content already covered, we will come back to them again. So,
sure.
Back to the session.
Okay. Provisions regarding the financial statements, there are only like 20 sections which deal with the financial statement. Previously, these were section 230 to 247 in the Companies Ordinance 1984, renumbered to 220 to 239. Almost the content is comparable, but then there are section by section, there are some changes. What I've done is over here, स्लाइड आपको काफी इसमें भरी भरी लग रही होगी और जैसे रूटीन में होता है there are a few pointers वैसा नहीं है I've tried to put in lots of material and what I've tried to do is to take the verbatim text at some areas or to simplify it because this was that content that I thought we should cover. In section 220 a very important change I have underlined it over here कि the record of the branch office it needs to be kept at the registered office as well. This is one very important change that has been brought forward. पहले ऐसा नहीं था, लेकिन अब branch office का record भी आपको अपने registered office में रखना है. इसमें एक दूसरी change है जिसको मैं underline नहीं कर सका, my mistake, at bullet number 4. Previously होता था कि if there is a branch office which is maintaining its records anywhere outside, so it was supposed to provide the summarized details to the registered office. Or previously, ये था कि the branch office needs to submit these details within 3 months. अभी जो within 3 months वाली restriction है, that has been lifted. अब simply, if you provide those summarized returns to your registered office, it means you have complied with that. The last bullet is very important that now the option to the members of inspecting records is withdrawn. Previously, the members of a company on paying a prescribed fee during the office hours of the company at its registered office were allowed to review the underlying records. अब इन्होंने इस option को खत्म कर दिया and if while moving down my presentation we'll see अब the members of the company on request and upon payment of a fee दोनों चीजें उसने कर दी है कि उस request को अगर company entertain करे और अपनी prescribed fee जो सी है वो recover कर ले then a member may obtain the copies of the financial statements only. डिबेंचर होल्डर्स के लिए ऐसा नहीं है ऑन पेमेंट ऑफ द फी दे कैन ऑब्टेन द कॉपी लेकिन यहाँ पर जो ऑप्शन दी गई थी मेंबर्स को ऑफ इंस्पेक्शन ऑफ द रिकॉर्ड्स गिवन बाय द कंपनीज ऑर्डिनेंस 1984 दैट हैज बीन विथड्रॉन. This is in all of it. I am not reading it in too much detail. एक important इसके अंदर चीज वैसे ही सबकी understanding के लिए कि if apart from the registered office the board resolves if we are going to keep our documents, our records at some other place and they resolve it into their board meeting, then what they're supposed to do is within 7 days of such a resolution, they have to intimate it to the registrar and then they can put up their records at some other place. Books of accounts to be kept by company. इसके अंदर जो पहले था लॉ वही है कि the books of account need to be maintained for 10 years, but the additional requirement is that the supporting vouchers also need to be kept. पहले supporting vouchers बहुत clearly identified नहीं था, but now the record keeping requirements prescribe that the supporting vouchers also need to be kept for 10 years. अगर आप इसको नॉन कंप्लाई करते हैं तो फ्रॉम कंपनीज ऑर्डिनेंस 1984 टू कंपनीज ऑर्डिनेंस लिखा रहेगा इट्स कंपनीज एक्ट 2017 द पेनल्टी हैज इंक्रीज्ड फ्रॉम 1 year imprisonment to 2 years imprisonment for a 20 to 50,000 rupees fine to 500,000 fine, minimum 5 million maximum, and a daily penalty from 5,000 rupees to 10,000 rupees. And for other companies, the imprisonment has been enhanced from 6 months to 1 year, and the fixed penalty has been increased from 10,000 rupees to 100,000 rupees. Inspections of book of account by the commission, and then the penalties of the default. इसके अंदर बेसिकली जो की चेंजेस आई हैं वो ये हैं कि नाउ द कमीशन इज ऑथराइज्ड टू इंस्पेक्ट. जो पावर थी ऑफ रजिस्ट्रार टू इंस्पेक्ट दैट हैज बीन टेकन अवे, और जो इंस्पेक्टर होगा who is going to be appointed by the commission, he may take photocopies of the books of account, he can place identification marks, and this has got valid reasons where he believes that there is an evidence. He may keep the record in his possession for 30 days. This is a new thing that has been introduced over here. The powers of registrars are removed. Inspector is to report directly to the commission, and in terms of non-compliance, the imprisonment from 1 year has been decreased to 180 days, which means 6 months. The fine from 10,000 has been increased to 100,000 rupees, and disqualification for holding the office has been reduced from 5 years to 3 years. तो थोड़ा सा इसके अंदर कुछ रिलैक्सेशन भी इन्होंने इन पेनल्टीज में दी है. फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स. Companies Act 2017, what it has done is, previously at most of the places, the limits were described in terms of months. 4 months, 6 months, 16 months, 18 months. Now it has streamlined everything and it has covered days. कि इतने दिनों में आपने इस चीज को करना है. When we talk of days, so it usually means, it's not defined anywhere, but it usually means working days, and all the public holidays and the weekends, these are excluded. तो first financial statement, ये financial statement 223, थोड़ी सी इसके अंदर चेंजेस आई हैं, और वो चेंजेस बेसिकली इसमें ये हैं कि इस फॉर द फर्स्ट ईयर पहले आपको अपने फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स फर्स्ट एजीएम होल्ड किया करनी पड़ती थी विद इन 18 मंथ्स यू आर अलाउड, बट नाउ दैट लिमिट हैज बीन रिड्यूस्ड, एंड नाउ द फर्स्ट फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स हैव टू बी लेड डाउन इन एन एजीएम इन 16 months. After that, every AGM is to be done within 120 days of the year end, which means that if it is going to be 30th June, then we shall be counting the days of July and August 62, and then September and somewhere October. So 28 October बन जाएगा. From 4 months set it should be 120 days. And if in any case, for example, you cannot convene your AGM, the registrar may relax further 30 days, and then you can hold it within 150 days. Private companies whose share capital does not exceed 1 million, they have been exempted from the requirements of audit. This is a very interesting part of it. उन्होंने ऑडिट नहीं कराना, लेकिन उन्होंने अपनी ऑथेंटिकेटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स को सबमिट जरूर कराना है, वेदर ऑडिटेड और अनऑडिटेड. उसके ऊपर हम बाद में आएंगे. कंपल्सरी ऑडिट की रिक्वायरमेंट से आप हट गए हैं, लेकिन ऑथेंटिकेटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स जो सा है that is still over there. They have to file their financial statements with the registrar. Previous की तरह अब भी के फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट जो भी आप अपनी बनाएंगे, that will always be for a period of 12 months, and there would be no extension in that. But if you want to prepare the financial statements for a period of more than 12 months, you will have to take a prior special permission in writing from the registrar. Audited financial statements के साथ you have to, if I am on the last bullet, auditor's report, chairman's review report. Now, chairman's review report is that part which has specifically been included for listed companies. हम बहुत सारी listed companies की financial statement देखते थे और chairman review आता था, but now the law has made it mandatory that the chairman has to include his review on the financial statements. उसका content कौन सा है that we shall be covering in the director's portion. And then there's definitely a director's report to be sent. This is to be sent electronically, and then it should be made available on the website and at the registered office as well. Achha, the number of copies of the financial statement to be submitted to the commission and registrar has been reduced from 5 to 3. But along with this, you have to dispatch them electronic copies, and you have to keep the electronic copy of the financial statement on your website as well. And the time by which you have to keep these financial statements, this is yet to be specified. Requirements of financial statement are not to be applied to a single member company. And then penalties are over there from imprisonment 1 to 2 years in case of a listed company. The penalties which were 20 to 50,000 rupees have been enhanced to 500,000 to 5 million. And then there is a daily fine from 5,000 rupees to 10,000 rupees, and likewise for the other company. Reference से लगा रह गया classification of companies. This is a new section which has been introduced, and this says that third schedule is going to give you the classification of a company, which includes the public interest company, a medium-sized company, or a small-sized company. Contents of the financial statement. The financial statements have to give a true and fair view of the state of the affairs of the company. They have to comply with the reporting standard, and the reporting standards have been described in third schedule. इसमें एक important चीज़ आई है कि preparation of financial statement and accounting treatment of associated companies to be made in compliance with the financial reporting standards. That means कि हम जो पहले कुछ alternate treatments कर सका करते थे associated companies के हवाले से, the law has made it very clear that now this treatment has to be made in accordance with the financial reporting standards, which means the IAS 24, and then the other requirements contained in other standards are fully applicable upon them. And then the usual powers of the commission, that it may exempt a company from any specific requirement of any particular schedule, or it may permit a company to adopt any specific schedule remains intact with the commission. Last line is requirement to identify change in accounting policy withdrawn. अब से पहले ये होता था, और अगर हम अपनी audit report के format को भी देखें, तो opinion paragraph very specifically says except for the change in accounting policy with which we concur. This line has been taken out, or the special requirement has been taken out from the Companies Act 2017, which means that when the new audit reports under ISA 700, which is in the course of being adopted by SECP, जब वो adopt हो जाएंगी, तो this particular requirement where the change in accounting policy is specifically described in the opinion para, that requirement would be withdrawn, only to the extent of the opinion para. Duty to prepare director's report and statement of compliance. This is a pretty important area because if I look into that, this section 226 and 227, इसमें काफी सारी नई चीजें हैं. Board एक director's report बनाएगा. Private companies are not subsidiaries and having a share capital of less than 3 million, they are not required to prepare this. Commission may direct which companies are to prepare the statement of compliance, and a holding company is also required to prepare director report and a statement of compliance with greater emphasis is given on the entities consolidated. And then the non-compliance may attract a penalty of 25,000 rupees with any penalty of 500, which means it's up to scale 1 penalty. इसमें जो statement of compliance है of directors, that has yet not been introduced. However, the reporting requirements of auditors that was introduced somewhere on 14th June that specified the content of what the auditor has to review and certify in terms of statement of compliance of directors. If I share that, PDF available? This PDF is okay. This is a special. This is that particular draft auditor's reporting obligation requirements that were introduced. This auditor is to give an opinion, check that the company is maintaining proper records showing full particulars including quantitative details and situation of fixed assets. Ensure that physical verification of inventory has been conducted at reasonable intervals by the company. Check internal control system is in place in the company. Verify that the company is regularly depositing undisputed government dues, including duties and taxes. Check that the company is regularly depositing undisputed employees' retirement contribution. And then the company has not defaulted in payment due to financial institutions. The business conducted during the year is in accordance with the objects of the company. And then company on loans granted other than in normal course of business is receiving principal and return thereupon. Personal expenses are not included in the revenue account. And then disposal, acquisition of asset, disposal of investment, entering agreements with the related parties, raising capital, funds raised through capital are being applied for the requisite purposes, representation from the management that none of the directors is disqualified to act as a director, and ensure that any fraud has not been done. The auditor is to report on that in his specific review report. अब अगर हम इसको देखें तो ये statement of compliance is yet to be introduced. However, this is what the auditors are going to give a report upon on the statement of compliance. This is a new requirement. As far as the director's report is concerned, इसके जो contents हैं, they have been further explained, and for public companies or listed companies, they have been added. Over here, I would like to go into the detail. The director's report shall contain the review of the state of the company's affairs and its business. Its business has been introduced this time. The amount recommended to be paid as dividend or to be given to other funds like reserve fund, general reserve fund, or reserve account. In case of a public company and a private company being a subsidiary of a public company, the report shall also include names of the person who at any time during the financial year were directors of the company. Previously, ये practice रही थी कि the directors, as at the reporting date, their names are disclosed, and only this is disclosed that how many directors attended the meetings of directors. But now this clause specifically says that whosoever has remained the director of the company, his or her name is to be included. Excuse me for a while. The principal activities and the development and performance of the company's business during the financial year. Description on the principal risks and uncertainties facing the company. Changes that have occurred during the financial year concerning the nature of the business and its subsidiaries and the company's interest. Information and explanation in regard to the auditor's report and any modifications therein, the pattern of shareholding, name and country of origin of the holding company if it is a foreign company. हम ये चीज डायरेक्टर्स रिपोर्ट में लेके जा रहे हैं, but previously क्या हुआ करता था कि we used to disclose it into the notes to the financial statement, usually the first note which deals with the introduction of the company. The earnings per share, the reason why has there been any loss during the year, and then the future prospects of the profit, if any. Defaults on the payment of debts and why they were made, and then an important thing has been added: comments in respect of adequacy of internal financial controls. It means, like as previously, the banking institutions are issuing their report and getting it reviewed by from their auditors, which deals with controls of financial reporting. Now, companies may also have to move into that respect. Currently, this is only at the commentary stage. Maybe later, a few years down the road, SECP requirement aa jaye. Material changes in the financial statement from the year end to the date these financial statements were authorized to be issued. यानी जो आपके audit के 3-3.5 महीने के अंदर अगर कोई material change आई है, you have to include that into your financial statements as well. In case of a listed company, the business review must, to the extent necessary, for understanding of the development, performance, or position of a company include. अब इस listed companies के लिए है trends and factors which may affect the future development, impact of company's business on the environment, activities undertaken by the company with regards to corporate social responsibility, directors' responsibility in terms of adequacy of internal financial controls, and then the board prepares and attaches a statement of compliance to the financial statement as may be specified. I just showed you the content which the commission says upon which an auditor is to issue his review report, and जो directors की statement of compliance है उसके बारे में उसी के अंदर जो दो laws दिए हैं they are still awaited, वो जब आ जाएंगे तो director statement of compliance भी clear हो जाएगी. And if for example there is any non-compliance in the director's report, the penalty for imprisonment in case of a listed company has been increased from a year to 2 years. The penalty, which was of 20,000 to 50,000 rupees, has been increased up to 500,000 rupees, and daily penalty from 5,000 to 10,000 rupees. And a very important thing is this: कि जो statement of compliance है, this is to be approved by the board and signed by the CEO and a director. Previously approval from the board जो सा है उसकी requirement नहीं थी और इसको usually chief executive sign किया करते थे. But now a chief executive and a director is to sign this report and the board needs to approve it. Okay. Consolidation of financial statements. Requirements ज़्यादातर वही ज़्यादा ही हैं. A holding company is to prepare the consolidated financial statements, and while consolidating it, the requirements of consolidation for private companies or subsidiaries whose share capital is less than 1 million rupees, they are exempted from that. The law says that the year end of a subsidiary and the holding company, ideally it should coincide, but if it doesn't, then the year end of the subsidiary should not be more than 90 days away from the year end of the holding company. And in case if there are such non-coincidences of days, then an interim accounts have to be prepared for consolidation purposes. While consolidation, if there are material qualifications in subsidiaries, then the consolidated financial statement also needs to take into account those qualifications as well. In this consolidated financial statement, this has been made clear that those directors who signed the individual, जिसे हम technically separate financial statements कहते हैं holding company की, those who have signed the separate financial statement of the holding company, those directors have to sign the consolidated financial statements of the consolidated financial statements as well. Filing requirements stay the same, and the contravention is a stage 2 or a level 2 contravention, which means the penalty up to 500,000 rupees and a daily penalty of 1,000 rupees. ये holding company जो सी है section 230, it always has got the right कि it may appoint a representative who can go and inspect the books of account or records of the subsidiary company. इसको बड़ा explicitly कह दिया गया. Approval and authentication of financial statements. This is something that we need to see. Financial statement and the consolidated financial statement, it needs to be signed by the chief executive officer and a director, and if it's a listed company, then by the CFO as well. Previously, जहाँ तक code of corporate governance है, वो ये कहा करता था कि to the audit committee, those financial statements should be presented, which are authenticated by the CEO and CFO. But now it has been made clear by the law कि जब ये publication के लिए जाएगी, then the financial statement would have to be signed by the CFO as well. In case it's a private limited company having a paid-up capital up to 1 million rupees, along with the financial statement, an affidavit has to be presented that this financial statement has been approved by the board, and that affidavit has to be executed by the chief executive. Single member company की जो financial statement है वो single director ही sign करेगा, and अगर signatures के ऊपर आप contravene कर जाएंगे तो level 1 penalty है, which means 25 up to 25,000 rupees fixed and a daily penalty of 500 rupees. आप अपनी ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स को अपनी एजीएम के अंदर प्रेजेंट करेंगे और एजीएम आपने मतलब 30 डेज के अंदर बाद में आपने इसको फर्दर फाइल भी कर देना। फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट अगर उस एजीएम में अडॉप्ट नहीं होती या एडजर्न हो जाती हैं एंड व्हेन एवर दैट सब्सिक्वेंट एजीएम टेक्स प्लेस एंड जब वो अडॉप्ट हो जाए देन यू हैव टू प्रेजेंट इट टू द रजिस्ट्रार एंड यू हैव टू गिव द रीजंस कि इसमें डिले क्यों आया है। A private limited company whose paid up capital is less than 10 million rupees ये clause के ऊपर applicable नहीं है और इसकी नॉन कंप्लायंस की यानी नॉन फाइलिंग की जो कॉन्ट्रवेंशन की पेनल्टी है वो लिस्टेड कंपनीज के लिए लेवल 2 पे है और अदर देन लिस्टेड कंपनीज के लिए लेवल 1 पे है। तो ये अभी तक अगर हम देखें तो दिस इज द फर्स्ट सेक्शन where for non compliance जो contravention जो penalty आ रही है that is separate for a listed company and different for other than a listed company. If it's a small company having paid up share capital less than rupees 1 million, it may submit its financial statements whether audited or unaudited with the commission. अब सेक्शन 235 एंड 236 आएगा जिसका हम पहले तस्करा कर चुके कि ऑन रिक्वेस्ट एंड ऑन पेमेंट ऑफ फी। रिक्वेस्ट से जहां तक इन्फर किया जाता है कि इफ यू मेक अ रिक्वेस्ट नाउ दिस इज अप टू द कंपनी वेदर इट एंटरटेन्स योर रिक्वेस्ट और नॉट। Company is to provide you the copy of the financial statement within 7 days of the date you made the request. But the very next section which deals with the debenture holders उसमें यह है कि अगर वो आपकी financial statement मांगे तो on the payment of a fee within prescribed days you have to share all of them and if you don't share it there is going to be a level 1 penalty on that. तो debenture holders के लिए whenever they require कि आप financial statements दें you have to comply with that but for members this is on request and on payment of the specified. Quarterly financial statements इसकी requirement में change नहीं आया। इसमें फर्स्ट एंड थर्ड क्वार्टर का जो रिव्यू है आपको क्वार्टर एंड के 30 डेज के बाद देना है, हाफ ईयर का रिव्यू विद इन 60 डेज देना है। हाफ ईयरली रिव्यू जो सा है उस पे जो आपने ऑडिटर से रिव्यू रिपोर्ट लेनी है दैट रिव्यू रिपोर्ट वुड कंटेन ओनली द accumulated figures of the half year not of the second quarter. Authentication requirements are the same and if you do not comply with these requirements there is going to be a level 2 penalty which means 500,000 rupees up to 500,000 rupees fixed and then a daily penalty of 100,000 rupees. I have not covered one thing over here in the slide but then the difference is कि previously जो holding company के auditors हुआ करते थे they also used to review the financial statements of the subsidiary company as well. That has not been discussed over here. Excuse me.
It's not okay? No, it's not okay. You want to take a break? 5 minutes?
मेरा ख्याल है फोन schedule तक पहुंच गया. It's just about to close and it's
charging now?
It's charging. Commission may definitely require additional statements of account and if these are not complied, a scale 3 penalty may be imposed which is of 100 million rupees and a daily penalty of up to 500,000 rupees. This was part 2 regarding the financial statement. I have only been able to cover half of it. The specific requirements of 4th, 5th and 3rd schedule they are yet to take place. But I think over here we can take a few questions if you have got any before I move on to 3rd, 4th and 5th schedule. Questions and queries?
Mr. Rehan Yusuf is asking the revised auditor's report has been issued by SECP under revised ISA 701. Whether ISA KAM is applicable for the listed companies, what about the non-listed companies? Will it also be applicable to a branch of a foreign bank which have been operating in Pakistan?
Acha. The revised auditor's report उसका जो ड्राफ्ट है, जब भी मैंने आपको पीडीएफ दिखाया, उसके अंदर उन्होंने ड्राफ्ट शेयर किया है। उस ड्राफ्ट के अंदर CAMS, the key audit matter paragraph, that has only been prescribed for listed companies and there is no reference कि any branch of the foreign office etc. क्या उनमें भी CAM लगेगा कि नहीं लगेगा। तो अभी तक presumably यही है कि it would only be for the listed companies A, and B part of the answer is that that regulation, auditor reporting obligation 2017, that is still at a draft stage. The final version of the report is yet awaited.
Mr. Muhammad Daniel Yaqub is asking, he has, I guess, two questions. Disclosure confirming compliance with the requirements of the Companies Act relating to long-term investments has been added. What compliance? And the second question is presentation of the statement of compliance with the provision of Section 208 in case of Provident Fund, Provident Fund Provident Fund Trust is maintained by the company. What kind of compliance, disclosure of the property or asset acquired by the company, however, not held in the name of company or not in the possession and control of the company, need clarification about what property they are talking about. And whether
okay, as far as your disclosure requirements are concerned, I've yet not covered the disclosure requirements. The disclosure requirements report under Schedule 4 and 5 of the Companies Act 2017, they are yet to come. जहाँ तक आपकी disclosure requirements का ताल्लुक है, you only need to disclose whatever has been asked. So it is assumed that you have complied to the extent of disclosure. Or question?
Presentation of the statement of compliance with the provision of Section 208 in case of Provident Fund / Provident Fund Trust is maintained by company. What kind of compliance?
So socket change.
Socket change. Can we shift to another PC?
That will take my PC. No. Can we take a 5-minute break? Let them digest what you've done so far.
क्वेश्चन आ रहा है सुन के, तो अगर हम जितनी देर में इसको चेंज कर लेते हैं
Let's start with the office. Connected to the camera center to aggregate this kind of nice. Question and answers?
Question and answers.
Again, there are about 100 questions. Okay, very good. Please short answers, right? So, Muhammad Daniel Yaqub is saying, Circular 17, 2017, dated today. This means listed company year end 30th June 2017 will follow Companies Ordinance 1994 review.
Yes.
Can you briefly walk through? Yeah, charging me with charging. Okay, the next question is Hamad Anis. Saying, can you briefly walk through again on subsidiary companies disclosure on requirement again? The changes in CA 17. I think we can ask Hamad to watch the recording.
We have just dealt with the reporting framework. कि इस टाइम के अंदर आपने इस तरह रिपोर्ट करना है. Reporting requirements I have yet not discussed. The specific requirements of 4th and 5th schedule, they are yet to come.
Okay, the next.
He charged me.
Alright, the next question is Raja Memun. Raja Memun is asking, is there any education requirement prescribed in CA 2017 for CFO?
Education requirement?
Yes. For Chief Internal Auditors as well?
नहीं, जो कंपनीज एक्ट जो आया है 2017, इसमें जो CFO की अपॉइंटमेंट वगैरह के बारे में इसको क्लेरिफाई किया है। जो आप एलिजिबिलिटी रिक्वायरमेंट्स की बात करें कि उसकी क्वालिफिकेशन और जैसे CA की रिक्वायरमेंट है, बेसिकली दिस इज कंटेन्ड इन द कोड ऑफ कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस एज कंटेन्ड इन द लिस्टिंग रेगुलेशंस। सो दैट हैज येट नॉट बीन चेंज्ड, व्हिच मींस कि वो अभी तक वैसे की वैसे ही है।
which includes ACCA.
For CIA,
Yes.
that includes professional
Another qualification.
जी बिल्कुल। तो उसमें if you are a member of any body, any accountancy body, professional body which is a member of IFAC, so you meet that requirement. वो भी intact ही है।
The next question is from Alam Zaid. He's saying, I need a definition of expert mentioned in the definition of expert. Does it include ACCA?
देखिए, अभी जैसे मैंने आपको कहा कि this law is still in infancy. It has just been 3 months since it has been passed. तो अभी at the moment उसने expert को कह दिया who can issue a certificate. Maybe in the days to come more clarifications आती हैं तो ACCs उसमें include हो. अभी currently उस definition में ये नहीं है।
Okay. The next one is, can you please define and elaborate Sharia compliant company?
Sharia compliant company is the one which complies with the Sharia rules. और अगर हम उस सेक्शन में बहुत क्लियरली चले जाएं तो वो कहता है कि दिस इज येट टू बी स्पेसिफाइड। अभी वो जो स्पेसिफिकेशन है वो आनी है। और if for the time being मैं इसको let me get it. Law कहता है no company shall claim that it is a Sharia compliant company unless it has been declared Sharia compliant in such form and manner as may be specified. तो अभी जो specification है वो आनी है। तो अभी this is a concept that has been introduced कि whenever that Sharia framework is introduced, a company who complies with those requirements, those frameworks, will say कि that is a Sharia compliant company. अभी तक वो framework नहीं आया। Likewise, इसके अगले पैरा में कहता है no person shall claim that a security, whether listed or not, is Sharia compliant unless it has been declared Sharia compliant in such form and manner as may be specified. That form and manner is to be specified yet. So once it comes, we can elaborate कि वो क्या होगी।
Tariq Sultan asking, is the form of beneficial ownership, which requires details of substantial shareholder, applicable on non-share capital company?
अच्छा, उस सेक्शन के अंदर बेसिकली इस तरीके से है कि जो मेरा ख्याल है उसकी रिक्वायरमेंट इज अ बिट डिफरेंट टू एक्सप्लेन। इफ यू आर अ पाकिस्तानी नेशनल having a specific shareholding in a company in Pakistan and you have got shareholding in a foreign company, you have to disclose your interest in the foreign company to your Pakistani company. Law इस तरीके से कुछ लिखा गया है, तो वो इसमें
Okay, Akbar Punjabi is asking, for a company to be a subsidiary controlling interest of 51% shares, what is the key to decide this thing?
दोबारा बोलें।
Controlling shares, 51%. What is the key to decide this thing?
Voting right control.
Okay. Next would be Ibrahim Yaqub's question. He's asking, has the new auditor report and auditing standard adopted through this act?
No. अभी ड्राफ्ट आया हुआ है जो वही जून में आया समवेयर, but that has yet not been enacted. और जो आज का सर्कुलर है, if it says that you have to prepare your accounts in accordance with Companies Ordinance 1984, that means जो 30 form 35 ABCD की रिपोर्ट्स हैं as per Companies Rules 85, they are applicable.
Ibrahim Yaqub is also suggesting, I think we should focus on definition of associate, related party, election of directors, holding of AGM.
इलेक्शन ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स जो सा है वो तो इसके अंदर अभी नहीं है डेफिनेशन में, तो वो तो स्टिल अभी पुराना मेथड ही है, नंबर ऑफ शेयर होल्डर्स मल्टीप्लाइड बाय द डायरेक्टर्स एलिजिबल टू बी इलेक्टेड, तो उसमें तो चेंज नहीं है। एजीएम का भी अभी जो है वो मीटिंग्स का पोर्शन है, वी आर नॉट कवरिंग इट टुडे। और बाकी जो इन द नेक्स्ट जो वेबिनार है जिस पे हम मजीद इसको फोकस करेंगे जिसमें ट्रांजैक्शन विद रिलेटेड पार्टीज हैं, ये ज्यादा एसोसिएट को हम उसके साथ लिंक कर पाएंगे।
Abdul Basit Lada is asking what is the difference between Companies Ordinance 2016 and Companies Act 2017?
What is the
difference between CO 2016 and CA 2017?
Numerous. हाँ, मैं आपको एक छोटी सी चीज से एग्जाम्पलीफाई करता हूँ। अगर आपके पास कंपनीज एक्ट 2016 भी पड़ा है और कंपनीज एक्ट 2017 भी पड़ा है, तो जहां पर उसकी एप्लीकेबिलिटी आती है पहला सेक्शन, तो कंपनीज एक्ट 2016 में ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं था, लेकिन कंपनीज एक्ट 2017 कहता है कि टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ दोज कंपनीज एंगेज्ड इन रियल एस्टेट, उन पे ये अभी एप्लीकेबल नहीं है। अब एक छोटी सी बात मैंने आपको बताई है, इसी तरीके से अंदर देयर आर सर्टेन चेंजेस, बट एज द कंपनीज एक्ट 2016 इट ओनली रिमेन एप्लीकेबल आई थिंक फॉर अ मंथ एंड अ हाफ, और उसके बाद वो फॉरन रिपील हो गया था और हम दोबारा 84 पे आ गए थे। तो कंपनीज एक्ट 2017 इज दैट पीस व्हिच वी एक्चुअली नीड टू फोकस अपॉन, क्योंकि आई थिंक 2016 is no more there.
Okay, Faizan Dar is asking what was 30 days restriction? We can't understand. You mentioned 30 days restriction or something.
30 days restriction, 3 months.
3 months restriction.
If you
Please clarify, Faizan, please clarify. We'll look at your question again. Let's move on to Shande's question.
30 days तो basically उस वक्त था कि अगर for example if you are unable to hold your AGM within 120 days of the year end, you can extend that period by 30 days if you take the prior permission from the registrar। वो ये चीज थी कि आपका 30 जून था, आपने 28 अक्टूबर तक फॉर एग्जांपल एजीएम करनी थी, आप किसी भी वजह से नहीं कर पाए, आप रजिस्ट्रार से जाके एक्सटेंशन ले लें, तो फिर आप उससे से 28 अक्टूबर के बजाय 27 नवंबर तक कर सकते हैं। वो 30 डेज एक्सटेंशन थी।
Shahzad question is asking, is it okay to maintain financial accounts and supporting budgets past 10 years digitally, or is it to be required in hard copy?
अच्छा, अभी इसमें ये है कि आप दोनों कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि जिस वक्त आगे हम डायरेक्टर्स की मीटिंग्स वगैरह के बारे में देखेंगे तो वहां पर भी इस चीज को क्लियर किया गया है कि फॉर 10 इयर्स इन हार्ड फॉर्म एंड इन सॉफ्ट फॉर्म इंडेफिनिटली। तो ये है, मतलब यू हैव टू लाइक मेंटेन इट, क्योंकि रिट्रीवेबल होना चाहिए। जहां तक आपकी वो सारी चीजें 10 इयर्स तक तो है, उसके बाद डिजिटल नहीं है।
Unfortunately, chairman and SECP are digital maintenance. All right, next one is Mr. Abdul Basit Lada again, saying for counting 4 months for AGM, does public holidays count? In your example, you counted July as the first 31 days.
यूजुअली इसमें जो अगर हम सेक्रेटरियल प्रोसीजर की बात करें तो इस तरह से होगा कि इफ द कंपनी ईयर एंड इज ऑन 30th June, you have to count 120 days, and say if they end up on 28th October, you have to hold your AGM by that. अब ये है लीगली आपका अलाउंस, बट से on 28th October there is a Sunday, or on 28th October there is some Eid holiday or any national holiday, और आप उसे एक दिन या 2 दिन आगे या पीछे करना चाहते हैं, तो then I think you have to seek permission, क्योंकि ये within 120 days कहता है, on 120th day नहीं कहता। मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग इसमें
Adnan Abdul Jabbar has a very precarious situation, saying last election of directors was held on October 31st, 2014. Now election is due on October 31st, 2017. Whereas as per the Companies Act 2017, last day to hold AGM has to be maximum 27th October 2017. What is the solution?
उससे पहले करवा लो।
पहले करवा, and if CA 2017 takes precedence.
हाँ जी, yes.
So it has to be 24/7.
Yes. वो मतलब वो लिमिट आपकी उतनी है, because actually जहाँ तक मुझे समझ आ रही है, what do you want to do? You want to hold the election of directors on the same day as is your AGM. You want to coincide both the two events. तो मेरा ख्याल है कि जहाँ तक एक simple plain understanding है कि if two laws conflict with each other, the stricter one prevails. तो या तो आप 28th को करवा लें,
27th की डेट है,
तो वो जो भी
Adnan Abdul Jabbar is asking, last year of election, okay, question Hafiz Farah is asking, due to some serious non-compliance issues, who will be imprisoned? CEO, CFO, or company secretary? Yeah, all three.
वो उसे कहते हैं ऑफिसर्स। अच्छा, अब ऑफिसर्स में आगे कंपनीज एक्ट ने एक चीज और आगे क्लियर की है कि अगर कभी इस तरह की सिचुएशन हो तो कौन से डायरेक्टर्स के ऊपर ये चीज लगेगी। अब इसका हमें बहुत सारी चीज देखनी है। फॉर एग्जांपल, आप किसी भी ऐसी कंपनी में हैं जिसमें आपके नॉर्मल डायरेक्टर्स हैं, एग्जीक्यूटिव इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स हैं, नॉन एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर्स हैं। अब अगर इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स किसी भी तौर पे और नॉन एग्जीक्यूटिव इस चीज को साबित कर दें कि जो कुछ हुआ है इसमें हमारी एट्रीब्यूशन नहीं है, और द कंपनी डिड दिस विदाउट आवर नॉलेज, किसी भी तौर पे साबित कर दें, तो डेफिनेटली वो सारे लोग निकल जाएंगे। अच्छा, उसके बाद बात आ जाएगी फिर उसका रिस्पॉन्सिबल कौन है। सीईओ, सीएफओ, मे बी द कंपनी सेक्रेटरी एंड द एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर्स। तो अब इट वुड हैव टू बी सीन कि एक्चुअली किस किस पे चीज लगेगी। इधर द लॉ हैज टू क्लियर, जहां पर इररिस्पेक्टिव के सारे लोग शामिल हैं, तो लॉ क्लैरिफाइज इट ऑल ऑफिसर्स ऑफ द कंपनी। वरना आमतौर पे ऐसे, जो मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, ऐसे नहीं होता। ये असेस किया जाता है कि कितने लोग रिस्पॉन्सिबल हैं, जहाँ पे सबको रिस्पॉन्सिबल करना होता है वहां पे क्लियरली ऑफिसर्स ऑफ द कंपनी लिख दिया जाता है।
Rehan Yusuf is asking, saying the revised auditor's report has been issued by the SECP under revised ISA 701. Per the ISA CAM is applicable for listed companies?
CAM is only applicable for listed companies, and that is that auditor reporting obligation issued back in June 2017. This is yet on the draft stage. ये अभी तक finalize नहीं हुई, उसका नया version अभी तक नहीं आया।
Saying, what about the non-listed companies? Will it also be applicable to a branch of a foreign bank which has been operating in Pakistan?
We'll have to see कि जो नया रिपोर्टिंग फॉर्म आता है उसमें वो कैम के लिए किस किस को कहता है, क्योंकि अगर वो कहता है सिर्फ लिस्टेड कंपनीज को है और लॉ आपको एक रिलैक्सेशन दे रहा है, तो वी नीड टू स्टिक टू दैट, बट दिस नीड्स टू बी क्लैरिफाइड व्हेन द फाइनल वर्जन ऑफ दैट रिवाइज्ड ऑडिटर्स रिपोर्ट इज इशूड।
Umar Hafiz is asking, question one, withdrawal of members' right to inspect records. Is it in line with other international companies act such as UK Companies Act?
देखिए, जिस वक्त कंपनीज एक्ट 2016 आया था तो इंटरनेशनली बहुत सारे जो कंपनीज लॉज थे उनको देख के ये चीज बनाई गई थी। तो डेफिनेटली व्हाट आई थिंक इज कि इसको टेक इनटू अकाउंट किया गया होगा, बिकॉज इफ यू आर, फॉर एग्जांपल, फ्रॉम दैट पर्सपेक्टिव दैट इफ यू आर होल्डिंग ओनली 500 शेयर्स, यू आर अ माइनॉरिटी शेयर होल्डर, अब आप अगर जाके कंपनी के बहुत सारे रिकॉर्ड्स मांगना शुरू कर देंगे तो प्रोसीजरली प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगा। जो ये मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, लिखा हुआ कहीं नहीं है, एंड नॉट कैन आई कमेंट के वेदर इट्स इन लाइन विद इंटरनेशनल बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस, लेकिन अगर हम प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट से देखें जहां पे कंपनी ऑपरेट कर रही है तो बड़ी हद तक ठीक किया है।
मोहम्मद अनियाल याकूब has 4 questions. Daniel, I request कि आप छोटे questions पूछ लें because it will take a lot of time. We'll go one. One is disclosure confirming compliance with the requirements of Companies Act related to long-term investment has been added. What compliance?
Abhi, after this Q&A, I'd go to the 4th and 5th schedule. That would cover what needs to be disclosed.
The next one is presentation of a statement of compliance with the provisions of Section 208 in case of Provident Fund Trust is maintained by the company. What kind of compliance?
इसीलिए इसके अंदर होता है कि आपका जो प्रोविडेंट फंड है उसने इन्वेस्टमेंट कहाँ पर की है, क्योंकि मतलब पहले अगर हम देखें तो इसका एक सर्कुलर भी था where we need to see what is the amount of investment, the cash value of that, and then the present fair value of that, and whether जो आपको कंपनी से रिसीट मिलनी थी जो 30 days of the month, 15 days of the month होती हैं, वो आपको मिल गई हैं कि नहीं, and whether they have been invested according to the instructions laid down। और अगर हम इस चीज को देखें तो 4th and 5th schedule के अंदर एक बड़ा क्लियरली लिखा होता है कि आप अपने प्रोविडेंट फंड का ये डिस्क्लोजर दें, और उसके अंदर आप एक स्टेटमेंट भी ऐड करें कि रेलेवेंट सेक्शन हैज बीन कंप्लाइड विद। तो जितने भी आई रिक्वेस्ट के जो डिस्क्लोजर रिलेटेड क्वेश्चंस हैं, अगर हम उन्हें कुछ देर के लिए रेफर करते हैं, बिकॉज़ 4th and 5th schedule is due, that will describe what to disclose. Once you disclose them, that means you have complied.
Okay, I think the next question is also about disclosure. So can we?
For disclosures, please, I'll request to wait for some time. मैं 4th schedule एक बार touch कर लूँ, then we can take up as many questions as we can.
Let's get Daniel's next questions. Hafiz Faraz's question: record retention requirements stated 10 years. It's been included. I think we've answered this. soft copy, indefinitely hard
हाँ
copy.
वो अगर रजिस्टर्स वगैरह भी हैं डिफरेंट जगहों पे आ रही हैं.
Okay, Muhammad Hamza is saying if a company registered in CO 1984 with capital of 1 million, is it required to submit audited statements in SECP? Also, is it required to prepare the tax returns based on audited statements?
देखें जो रिक्वायरमेंट वेव हुई है वो ऑडिट करवाने की वेव हुई है कि आप ऑडिट ना करवाएं. फाइलिंग ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट की रिक्वायरमेंट उस तरह वेव नहीं हुई. अगर हम प्रीवियस कंपनीज ऑर्डिनेंस 1984 को देखें तो जहाँ पे पेड अप शेयर कैपिटल 7.5 मिलियन हुआ करता था या उससे लेस होता था तो आपकी फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स एसईसीपी में जमा नहीं होती थी. उस तरह की कोई रेलेवेंट क्लॉज यहाँ पे नहीं है. तो अब वो आपको क्लियरली कहता है कि इफ इट इज लेस देन अ सर्टेन अमाउंट आप ऑडिट ना कराएं और 1 मिलियन से नीचे है तो आप सिर्फ ऑथेंटिकेटेड जो सी है वो जमा करवा दें.
Muhammad Fazanda is saying in section 227 public company means only listed company or also non-listed company.
जब भी लॉ पब्लिक कंपनी कहेगा दैट मींस एज पर डेफिनेशन जब आपके विद इन जो 50 मेंबर्स वाली रिक्वायरमेंट और सारा कुछ है वो पूरा हो जाएगा. Until and unless it does not specifically say a listed company, it means all the public unlisted companies as well.
Muhammad Ruhail Rafiq is private company having paid up share capital of 5 million is also required to provide a director's report and statement of compliance.
देखिए प्राइवेट कंपनीज के लिए उन्होंने शायद 10 मिलियन की लिमिट है जो भी हम ऊपर पढ़ के आए हैं. तो आप उन लिमिट्स को देख लें. इफ यू आर लेस देन दैट दिस इज नॉट एप्लीकेबल टू यू.
Muhammad Iqbal Abdul Malik Singh has mentioned that requirement of account does not apply on SMC. Whether it means that SMC does not require to file accounts with SECP?
Filing requirement is different. वो AGM की या बाकी requirements हैं. फाइल जो से हैं आप देखें अगर हम इस मोड को पढ़ें फाइलिंग अब सारी कंपनियां कर रही हैं.
He's again asking placement of accounts on website is also only for listed companies.
So far only for listed companies, लेकिन उसमें as may be notified भी है तो maybe certain class of companies in future may be asked कि आप अपने accounts को website पे रखें. अभी नहीं है ऐसा but maybe in future.
And he further goes on saying even the requirement of submission of audited accounts is waived for less than 1 million paid up capital company. Requirement of submission of audited accounts to FPR still exists. Means no relaxation for companies.
Yes. This is what I've just said कि audit करवाने की requirement waive हुई है, filing की waive नहीं हुई.
Taqi Hussain is asking previously financial statement of listed companies are also authorized by CEO and by the director. Now in new act there is an addition of CFO as well to authorize financials. Is that correct?
All the listed companies have accounts of the listed companies have to be authenticated by a CFO as well.
Umar Said is saying please explain authentication in detail.
It generally means endorsing the financial statements. जब हम financial statements पे देखते हैं तो 6 जगह होती है जहाँ पे signatures आ रहे होते हैं. It's at the bottom of the balance sheet, the profit and loss account, statement of comprehensive income, cash flow statement, your statement of changes in equity, and then the last page where the notes to the financial statements are prepared. इन 6 जगहों पर जब आप सिग्नेचर कर देते हैं तो that means these accounts have been authenticated. अब जब आप इनको कहीं पर भी सबमिट करते हैं तो मतलब दिया जाएगा कि ये 3 लोग इसकी रिस्पांसिबिलिटी ले रहे हैं कि जो ट्रू एंड फेयर की रिक्वायरमेंट है और जो कंप्लायंस की रिक्वायरमेंट है और जो भी एटसेट्रा दैट ऑल हैज बीन कंप्लाइड विद. तो ये ऑथेंटिकेशन.
Taqi Hussain is asking what are the major changes in the context of director's report?
At the end, I think this presentation would be shared. You can also see हम इसको highlight भी किए, लेकिन जो business affairs of the company है उसके बारे में लेके आगे चले हैं. कुछ रिपोर्टिंग है उसके अंदर के बोर्ड उसको एंडोर्स करेगा, सीईओ के साथ एक डायरेक्टर उसको साइन करेगा. अब फ्यूचर प्रोस्पेक्ट्स के बारे में बताएंगे, जो कॉन्टिजेंसीज हैं और कंट्रोल ओवर फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्टिंग है, आप इन सब के ऊपर अपनी रिपोर्ट देंगे.
Okay, the next one is by Mumtaz Hasan.
We have to cover 4th and 5th chapter as well.
Okay, I think we have about 10 questions left. So should we continue or should we छोटे आंसर ठीक है छोटे आंसर जी. Please explain chairman's review report.
Chairman's review report is basically a new addition. We shall be covering it into the directors. और वो ये है कि चेयरमैन अपनी रिव्यू रिपोर्ट भी देगा, एंड दिस इज ओनली एप्लीकेबल फॉर द लिस्टेड कंपनीज। उसमें चेयरमैन का रिव्यू है अबाउट द बिजनेस एंड इट्स परफॉर्मेंस। उसमें ओवरऑल जो बिजनेस परफॉर्मेंस भी है और स्पेसिफिक टू योर कंपनी भी है।
Mohammad Zishan Shafi's question was about authenticated financial statements. I think that has been explained. Danyal Yakub is saying Circular 17, 2017 dated today means listed company will follow. I think this has been explained again. Danyal, your question has been answered. Mumtaz Hassan saying, as are the director's report and chairman's review report the same thing or different? Different. Alan Dev is saying the new act regarding disclosure of director's report and other information can be categorized as a rule-based approach or principle-based approach.
It's a mix. You see, where you have to define certain things, for example, what is your EPS? अब वो तो आप directly profit and loss के पेज के नीचे से एक figure उठा के paste कर देंगे, so it's just a rule. But in principle, you have to see कि what your company has to suffer and why had it to suffer due to international or global issues or the specific macroeconomic issues in your country or your sector or whatever. तो ये मिक्स ही है किस्म का, इस हद तक रूल बेस्ड है कि वो जो 8-10 एलिमेंट्स हैं वो आपने पूरे करने हैं।
Bilal Ahmed saying, are there any changes to Legal Advisors Act?
लीगल एडवाइजर्स एक्ट में एक चीज ये आई थी कि इफ योर शेयर कैपिटल इज मोर देन आई थिंक 10 million रुपीस, तो तब वो आपका एप्लीकेबल था। दैट इज नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ कंपनीज एक्ट, दैट्स अ सेपरेट एक्ट, लेकिन उसकी लिमिट इस तरीके से एनहांस हुई थी।
Abbas Nazir is asking, is section 238 applied for current period or commission may ask for past data such as last 10 years report, etc.? If yes, then how many years commission can ask for data?
देखिए जी, कमीशन हैज गॉट अनरिस्ट्रिक्टेड पावर। इसके लिए सेपरेट सिक्योरिटीज एंड एक्सचेंज कमीशन एक्ट है 97 का, द पावर्स आर कंटेन्ड देयरइन, एंड 10 इयर्स का तो आपने वैसे ही रखना है, तो दे कैन आस्क आई थिंक प्रीवियस डेट ऑफ पे।
Muhammad Amadul Hassan is asking about the slides. Everyone who has even registered for the webinar and not attending it live will receive the presentation, so don't worry about that. Taqir Hussain is saying, in the context of listed companies, electronic financial statements are also compulsory to send to the registrar.
Yes.
Ali Beg is saying, okay, Ali Beg, your question is not there. Muhammad Bilal is saying, if a person have shares in Pakistan, in a Pakistani company, and have shares of foreign company, is that an association of under the CA 2017 law applicable?
रिक्वायरमेंट कुछ इस तरीके की आई है कि जहां पर आपकी फॉरेन होल्डिंग है, वो अभी हम फोर्थ शेड्यूल में देखेंगे, यू हैव टू डिस्क्लोज दैट। और जहां तक अगर आप इसको दूसरे जो 450 की रो में जो सेक्शन है उसके कॉन्टेक्स्ट में देखें, एंड इफ यू आर अ सब्सटेंशियल शेयर होल्डर, तो फिर वो जो डिस्क्लोजर है वो आपको देना पड़ेगा, लेकिन एसोसिएट नहीं बनती।
Muhammad Baqir is saying, are there any specific provisions for submission of financials for private limited company, both AOP and SFC, and their penalties as well for failure?
AOP is association of persons, that is basically a partnership covered by the Partnership Act, not covered by the Companies Act 2017. तो AOP की फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट आप जिस भी फ्रेमवर्क पे बनाते हैं वो कंपनीज एक्ट के तहत नहीं आएगा। अब उसके बाद बच गई सिंगल मेंबर कंपनी आपकी, तो इफ इट इज अ सिंगल मेंबर कंपनी यू विल हैव टू कंसल्ट थर्ड शेड्यूल, वेयर डज इट फॉल? क्योंकि अगर आपकी है सिंगल मेंबर कंपनी, बट फॉर एग्जांपल सिंगल मेंबर कंपनी के 800 एम्प्लॉइज हैं, तब 750 का थ्रेशोल्ड क्रॉस कर जाते हैं, और उसका रेवेन्यू अगर से 50 बिलियन रुपीस है, बट दैट इज स्टिल रजिस्टर्ड अ कंपनी, हाउ वुड यू सी इट? यहाँ पर भी वो आप देखें कि कमीशन के पास पावर्स हैं कि जिसको नोटिफाई कर दे कि ये पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट कंपनी बन जाती है, जो डेफिनेशन आई थिंक उमर ने सबसे पहले पूछी थी कि व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन अ पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट कंपनी एंड अ पब्लिक सेक्टर कंपनी। तो यहाँ देखो सारे जब आप पैरामीटर्स क्रॉस कर जाते हैं तो फिर SECP में कम इनटू एक्शन को उसको डिक्लेयर कर दे से इफ, तो फिर आपकी रिक्वायरमेंट सिंगल मेंबर कंपनी को देखते हुए रिड्यूस की होगी। डेफिनेटली यू विल बी लुकिंग एट द थर्ड शेड्यूल फर्स्ट।
Okay, well, Mustafa Khwaja is asking us, saying, in capital market scenario, chief regulatory officer is also included in the mandate of officers, as PSX rulebook clearing house regulations say so.
देखें उसमें ना in addition to this Companies Act 2017 we also have to give weightage to the Securities Act 2015 पर जो चीफ रेगुलेटरी ऑफिसर है वो उसको कैसे लेके चल रहे हैं तो और उसकी भी रिपोर्टिंग के ऊपर अभी कुछ फॉर्मेट्स हैं जो कि विद SECP वेरियस बॉडीज हैव टेकन अप कि इनको कैसे लेके चलना है इसको मैं भी कंप्लीटली एंड कंक्लूसिवली अभी नहीं कुछ कह सकूंगा
Han Yusuf is saying companies are allowed to follow the IFRS. Per the IFRS 10, there is the control definition. Is there any difference in control definition between IFRS and Companies Act 2017?
देखिए वहां पर कंट्रोल जो सा है जो IFRS 10 में एग्जैक्टली तो मेरे सामने नहीं है बट वो कंट्रोल्स को डिसीजन मेकिंग वो आपके सिग्निफिकेंट अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसीज के ऊपर कंट्रोल की बात करता है जब हम कंट्रोल पे यहाँ पर आते हैं तो यहाँ पे कंट्रोल डिफाइन किया जाता है दो डिफरेंट तरीकों से कंट्रोल ओवर द वोटिंग राइट्स इफ यू गॉट मोर देन वन हाफ ऑफ दैट एंड देन कंट्रोल ओवर द बोर्ड एंड देन योर पावर टू नॉमिनेट द बोर्ड यहाँ पर एग्जैक्टली वो वाला कंट्रोल थोड़ा ज्यादा डिफाइंड है in terms of nomination of directors or controlling the board of the other company or the voting right. तो अब purely IFRS 10 के context में इसको ना देखें आप इसको भी देखें
Okay, Isa Khan I think is an affiliate of a student saying that they don't get to listen to such webinars in their classes academically. So they are saying this is very valuable. Isa suggests that if you want to once again go through it and go through the webinar in bits and pieces to have a good understanding of it, please watch the recording. We will keep the recording on the video channel. You can watch it 100 times if you want. But you're very right. He's saying that whenever they go for an interview, they are asked questions about the Companies Act. So this is a very good tool to be prepared for interview sessions. And secondly, I think this is not going to be the first or the last session of Companies Act. There are many more to come. And I can see the smile on his face. But yes, we will continue to hold these sessions certainly. Alanzeb is saying, sorry, let's go to Mohammed Waqas's question. There are only 3 or 4 questions there. Mohammed Waqas is saying, is there any requirement for sponsors of a listed company to maintain a shareholding of 51% or above? For example, a listed company right shares issue Urdu में आ गए Waqas Urdu में नहीं पढ़ी जाती उनसे but just the first part of the question वो उर्दू इंग्लिश में लिख रहे हैं
असल में ना मेरा ख्याल है शायद कुछ जगहों पर हम जो अपने ACCA में आजकल मुझे नहीं पता शायद पेपर 5 होता है टैक्स का not time that used to be paper 2 शायद हम कंपनीज एक्ट यूके की बहुत सारी चीजों को मिक्स भी कर रहे हैं रिक्वायरमेंट्स ज्यादा फोकस्ड हैं और स्पेसिफाइड हैं स्पॉन्सर्स की हद तक अभी तक हमने जो पढ़ा स्पॉन्सर्स के ऊपर बाद में पेनल्टी लग सकती है उनकी गलत रिपोर्टिंग की बेस पे लेकिन किस बंदे ने कितनी शेयर होल्डिंग मेंटेन करनी है ये कहीं भी नहीं है मेरा ख्याल है मिनिमम शेयर होल्डिंग टू बी मेंटेन्ड इफ आई एम नॉट मिस्टेकन इज ओनली इन द लिस्टिंग रेगुलेशंस जहां पर ये कहा जाता है कि 15% शुड बी विद द पब्लिक जनरल पब्लिक कुछ इस तरीके से
Irfan al-Haq has asked a question saying he's a finance manager of a company. I can't disclose the name of the company. Saying, say I am registered as private limited in July 2016. I was supposed to inject all my share capital amount 45 days of incorporation, but we failed to do so. Now I am planning to inject balance amount. What consequences will I face if further delay?
Injection of the capital.
Spoken out.
थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट है पे नहीं है अभी
The situation in Pakistan is that there must be changes regarding the rule of offshore companies. No political talking. Let's move on. If you want to answer, otherwise political we can skip it for now.
देखिए अभी जब हम 4th शेड्यूल पे जाएंगे तो ऑफशोर कंपनीज अगर आपने बनाई हैं आपकी कंपनी की इन्वेस्टमेंट्स हैं तो किसी हद तक दे नीड टू बी डिस्क्लोज्ड
Mohammed Ishan is saying if the directors of a company sign the unaudited financial statement, then would consider authenticated.
Yes. लेकिन उसमें आप एक चीज देखें दो उसमें चीजें आ जाएंगी when you would be circularizing those financial statement एक तो ऑडिट रिपोर्ट नहीं प्रोड्यूस कर पाएंगे उसकी बहुत ह्यूज पेनल्टी है ए बी जब आप डायरेक्टर्स रिपोर्ट उसकी बनाएंगे तो आप कौन सी रिपोर्ट को रेफर करेंगे
Okay. People are getting sick of question and answers now. They're saying, let's move on. But one last, two last questions. Mohammed Khizr Chaudhary is saying, will revaluation surplus be the part of statement of changes in equity, just like IS1?
Practical question. Basically, अभी हमें थोड़ी देर में से cover करना है. The old requirement contained in Companies Ordinance 1984 of disclosing the of treating the surplus on revaluation on property, plant and equipment, it has been done away with. अब इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि आपकी कंपनी पे जो भी एसेट्स पे सरप्लस राइज हो रहा है, यू हैव टू डील इट इन अकॉर्डेंस विद IAS 16. अब दूसरे नंबर पे बात आ गई हाउ टू डिस्क्लोज इट. इन द ओल्डर फोर्थ स्केड्यूल इट वाज रिक्वायर्ड कि surplus on revaluation is to be shown as a separate line item after the equity. वो चीज अब यहाँ पर नहीं रही, मतलब अब इसमें नहीं है. दैट मींस जिस तरह बैंक्स हमें इवैल्यूएट करते हुए हमारे सरप्लस ऑन रिवैल्यूएशन को इक्विटी का पार्ट बना देते हैं, कंपनीज यूं कर सकती हैं. लेकिन अब जो इम्पोर्टेंट, क्योंकि ये क्वेश्चन बहुत सारी जगहों से आ रहा था, लेकिन अगर हम आज का सर्कुलर 17 देखें तो इसका मतलब है कि एटलीस्ट फॉर 1 more year, यानी 30 जून 2017 तक वो कंपनीज जो अपनी नेगेटिव इक्विटी को या अपने लॉसेस को सरप्लस और रिवैल्यूएशन में मिक्स करके पॉजिटिव इक्विटी शो करना चाह रही थी, they can't do it as of 30 June 2017. तो ये रिक्वायरमेंट एक साल के लिए डेफर कर दिया. मेरा ख्याल है कि इस पे इतने क्वेश्चंस आएंगे कि शायद जल्दी इस पे कोई क्लैरिफिकेशन आ जाए. नहीं आती तो जहां तक प्लेन रीडिंग ऑफ द लॉ है, I think one should be allowed to club his surplus on revaluation as a part of equity as allowed by IS1.
This final question for Bilal Mahmood saying, if shareholders in my company are number 1 individual Pakistanis, number 2 individual foreigners, number 3 local entities, number 4 foreign entities, do I need to report all their foreign holding under section 452, read in line with section SRO 546/2017 dated 21st June 2017?
लॉ कहता है पाकिस्तानी नेशनल्स जो जिनके पास पाकिस्तान की नेशनैलिटी है. तो अगर आपके फॉरेन नेशनल्स हैं वो इसमें से प्लेनली स्पीकिंग निकल जाएंगे, क्योंकि इसमें से एक्ट का रेफरेंस है जो कि पाकिस्तान की नेशनैलिटी के ऊपर है. दूसरी बात यह है कि इस एक्ट के ऊपर बहुत सारे लोगों ने, शायद मैं एक जगह पर पढ़ा था, एक और फर्म के पार्टनर ने काफी अच्छा आर्टिकल लिखा हुआ है और उन्होंने इस चीज को भी बताया कि दिस इज ओनली एप्लीकेबल टू नेचुरल पर्संस. That means if there are corporate shareholders तो उनकी ऊपर डिस्क्लोजर नहीं लगेगा, ट्रस्ट वगैरह पे नहीं लगेगा. तो इसके ऊपर भी अभी लॉ इज देयर, रिटर्न आ गई हुई है, बट सिंस एक साल के लिए डेफर हो गई हैं चीजें या 31 दिसंबर तक डेफर हो गई हैं, तो शायद अगले 3-4 महीनों में मजीद क्लैरिटी आ जाए. As far as of today, Pakistani nationals have to disclose it.
Thank you very much. These are all the questions. Few. We've answered all of them. But may I please request only ask questions from the content covered. Otherwise, we go off track very often and it's going to delay the session. May I request all the members once again, only ask questions from the material covered. Please do not ask questions specific to an individual, specific to a company. Let's stay on track. Thank you very much. Amin Saab, I'm, hats off to you. You're individual questions, but let's hope that members will stick to the questions from the content covered, please. Thank you.
I think we will only be able to cover this part. Directors would be left because.
Okay, let's continue.
Okay.
Another session. See how much.
कुछ जगहों पे I would be running very fast, and at some places I would be dealing in a bit detail. As per my experience, as my judgment, I have overemphasized it a few places, and just given away a few. So, अगर कोई चीज unclear हो, तो you are always welcome to put it in a Q&A. जब हम फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट बनाएंगे तो हमारे पास जो स्टैट्यूटरी डिस्क्लोजर्स रिक्वायर्ड हैं वो 4th and 5th स्केड्यूल्स के आएंगे. ये 4th and 5th स्केड्यूल हमें कंपनीज एक्ट दे रहा है. Companies Ordinance में भी यही था, where 4th schedule is for the listed companies and 5th schedule is for all the companies other than listed. So whether you are a private, public, unlisted, single member, public, तो आप सब इसके अंदर फॉलो कर जाएंगे. अब जहाँ तक फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्टिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स का ताल्लुक है, तो we have basically got 4 sets of financial reporting standards. There is one full IFRS जो रेड कलर के वॉल्यूम्स हम देखते हैं. जितनी भी पब्लिक लिस्टेड कंपनीज हैं उनके ऊपर वो एप्लीकेबल है. if you are a small and if you are a medium sized entity, तो आपके ऊपर as declared by SECP जो इंटरनेशनल अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड बोर्ड का इंटरनेशनल फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्टिंग स्टैंडर्ड फॉर SMEs 2009 वर्जन है, दैट इज एप्लीकेबल। एक इसके बाद और वर्जन भी आया हुआ है जो कि 2017 के बाद एप्लीकेबल होगा, बट पाकिस्तान हैज अडॉप्टेड द 2009 वर्जन। If you are a not-for-profit entity, you would be adopting the accounting standards for NPOs which have been issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan. And if you are a small-sized entity, then you have to go for the revised accounting standards issued by ICAP. एक पुराना वर्जन है और एक नया वर्जन है small-sized entities के लिए। पुराना वर्जन 2 pages का था, which was backed in I think somewhere July 2006, और अब जो नया वर्जन है it's a bit elaborated version. Then there are auditors reports currently in the context of today's circular. Auditors report is to be issued on form 35. अब इसमें 4 forms हैं ABCD which are for the banking company, a public company or a private company, whatever, and then for consolidated accounts as well. अभी हम उसको follow करेंगे, and once the new accounting auditors report format is issued by the SECP, तो फिर ये जो auditors reporting obligation regulation 2017, which is at the draft stage at the moment, this would be finalized and there would be new auditors report containing scans. यहाँ what I have done is मैंने Companies Act 2017 का जो टेबल दिया गया था, I've simply cut that table and pasted it over here because it's more vivid to go through that. अब सबसे पहली डेफिनेशन है पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट कंपनी, जिसमें सबसे पहली कंपनी है लिस्टेड कंपनी। तो फॉर ऑल द लिस्टेड कंपनीज ऑल द IFRSs as applicable in Pakistan and the fourth schedule have to follow for this presentation and disclosure requirements. तो अगर हम इसको देख के चलें तो IFRS 1 है, 10 फाइनेंशियल इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स के कुछ स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं जो कि पूरे एप्लीकेबल नहीं है, एंड शायद IFRS 15 and 16 है which is yet to be adopted. In the public interest company, there may be a company which is a public sector company, a public utility company, holding assets in a fiduciary capacity and having such number of members having ordinary shares as may be notified or assets exceed a further notified value. अब आप देखें, if you are preparing account for a bank, for an insurance company, for a security company, a broker or a dealer or a pension fund or a mutual fund or an investment banking company, irrespective of its size, it would be categorized as a public interest company and all the IFRSs would be entirely applicable along with the disclosure requirements of 5th schedule. 5th schedule की reporting requirements 4th schedule से थोड़ी कम है, लेकिन unlike the previous companies ordinance 1984, requirements of both the schedules are the same. 4th में इनके listed company थोड़ी ज्यादा requirement है, उसको निकाल दें तो 4th and 5th की requirement बिल्कुल एक जैसी है। Now second category is a large sized company. Large sized company में देखें there are 3 categories. There in fact there are 4 categories. एक category यहाँ पर है और एक I'll be covering later. जो large sized companies हैं इनके अंदर if it's a non-listed company, which means a public unlisted company or maybe a private company, आपने देखना कि वो इन 3 में से कौन से 2 criteria follow करती है। Public capital of ₹200 million or a turnover of ₹1 billion or employees more than 750. Following IFRS and 5th schedule, if the turnover exceeds 1 billion for a foreign company, it would be following IFRS and 5th schedule. And if it is a non-listed company, और इसमें की चीज है कि इसका जो रेवेन्यू है वो 200 मिलियन से बढ़ जाए, तो भी it would be following the IFRS and the ICAP standard for NPO, both of them. Basically ICAP का जो standard for NPO है उसके अंदर restricted and non-restricted cash flows revenues को ज़्यादा डिटेल में देखा गया है और कुछ treatments थोड़ी सी different है, so we have to follow both the standards along with 5th schedule. For a medium-sized company, the paid-up capital is less than 200 million, turnover is less than ₹1 billion, and employees are more than 250 but less than 750. A private company with a paid-up capital greater than 10 million but less than 200 million. Turnover greater than 100 million but less than a billion, and employees more than 250 and less than 750. It would be a private company again, fifth schedule and IFRS for SMEs. And foreign company with a revenue less than 1 billion rupees. अब इन सारे companies की types के ऊपर we are going to apply IFRS for SMEs as issued by IFAT 2019. If it is a medium-sized company, non-listed, licensed under Section 42 and 45 of the Act, and revenue less than 200 million, then accounting standard for NPO as issued by the ICAP and the fifth schedule of Companies Act 2017, only these two would be applicable. And for a small-sized company, जो कि ऊपर हमने requirement पढ़ी उस threshold से आप नीचे आ जाए कि less than 250 employees, less than 100 million revenue, and less than a 10 million paid-up share capital, the small-sized revised AFRS issued by ICAP that would be applicable. अब ये थोड़ा सा याद करने वाली चीज है, और इसके साथ जो क्लैरिफिकेशन आई है वो ये आई है कि दिस क्राइटेरिया इज टू बी सीन फॉर द प्रीवियस ईयर्स ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. और अगर आप इसको चेंज कर दें, इस पे अगर 2 कंसेक्यूटिव ईयर्स आप इसको मीट नहीं कर सकते, यू डू नॉट नीड टू फॉलो दिस एंड फॉलो योर ordinary requirement. For example, I am a company. In 2016, I had a revenue of 800 million, but in 2017, my revenue crossed 1 billion. अब सवाल आगे कि in 2018 में as a company किधर हूँ? तो I have to see the last 2 consecutive financial years. अगर 2017 वाला exceeding 1 billion was a one-off incident and such a huge stream of revenue is not expected to be covered in future, तो मैं कह सकता हूँ कि last 2 consecutive years में क्योंकि ये सारे criteria follow नहीं हुए, तो I'm going to follow the previous category of a medium-sized company. Number of employees के बारे में it's a very important clarification that this is average number of persons employed by a company in the financial year calculated on monthly basis. So you have to take the 12 totals of employees, then average it, और तब आपको पता चलेगा कि आपका नंबर क्या है. नंबर ऑफ एम्प्लॉइज अगर हम देखें तो जो पुराना 4th and 5th स्केड्यूल है उसमें से इसको निकाल दिया था, बट अगेन इन द कंपनीज एक्ट 2017 दिस हैज बीन एडेड. बहुत पहले अंडर IS1 there used to be a requirement that a company has to disclose its number of employees, but I think 4-5 साल पहले वहां से भी निकल गया. हमारे इन फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में still the number of employees is over there and this has been added again. ये section 460 है. I think this is relevant to discuss it over here, that if evaluation is required to be made in respect of any property, stocks, shares, debentures, securities or goodwill or any other asset or net worth of a company or its liabilities, it has to be valued by a person having such qualification and registered as a valuer in such manner or on such terms and conditions as may be specified. That means you cannot hire any valuer or you cannot put a valuation yourself. You have to see that the registered valuer who has been registered in the manner to be specified. That means ये जो manner है ये अभी कुछ अर्से में clear होगा कि क्या है. उस valuer से आप valuation करवाएंगे for your valuation purposes. Currently, the practice is this, that all the valuers in Pakistan, they are registered with the BPA, PBA, Pakistan Bankers Association. They are categorized into 3 categories, A, B, C. A can value anything, B can only value certain land and property, etc. And C can only value the raw material, etc. तो मैं खाली उसको ये replace कर देगा. Might be still the commission needs to issue. Financial statements. Executive का डिस्क्लोजर आपका रेम्यूनरेशन के डिस्क्लोजर में आता है. प्रीवियसली था कि जिनकी 500,000 से सैलरी हो, that was an executive, but now that limit has been enhanced and every person who has got an annual salary of 12 lakh or 1.2 million, that would be defined as an executive. अच्छा, जब आप इसको पढ़ते चले जाएंगे, I have tried to highlight it that those requirements which are applicable only for the listed companies, they have been highlighted in red and underlined. Anything which is not highlighted in red and underlined as far as this part of the presentation is concerned, that is applicable to both public company, listed company, private company, or whatever. But red highlighted are additional requirements for listed companies only. अब geographic location and address of all business units including mills and plants लोग usually ये दे रहे होते हैं. अगली requirement is a bit tedious. Particulars of companies' immovable fixed assets including location and area of land. Fourth schedule clearly requires that a listed company is to give this. Capacity of an industrial unit, actual production and the reasons for shortfall. अगर आप पुराना fourth and fifth schedule देखें, this requirement was waived. सिर्फ आप एक्चुअल प्रोडक्शन देते थे, उससे पिछला जो फोर्थ एंड फिफ्थ स्केड्यूल था उसके अंदर एक्चुअल कैपेसिटी एंड शॉर्टफॉल दोनों चीजें थी. दिस हैज बीन रीइंस्टेटेड वंस अगेन. Number of persons employed as on the date of financial statement and average number of employees during the year, both of them have to be disclosed separately including the factory employees. मेरा ख्याल है कि शायद जो फैक्ट्री रिलेटेड हमारे जितने भी लॉज हैं, जैसे पंजाब में देयर इज पेसी, पंजाब एम्प्लॉय सोशल सिक्योरिटी इंस्टीट्यूशन, और EOBI, और देयर इज एन एजुकेशन सेस, ये शायद उन इंस्टीट्यूशंस को ईज करने के लिए हैं कि दे कैन मैच वेदर द नंबर ऑफ एम्प्लॉयज वर्किंग इन अ फैक्ट्री एंड देयर कंट्रीब्यूशंस आर मैचिंग और नॉट. The names of associates, related parties, basis of relationship, common directorship and percentage of shareholding. अब जो हमने डेफिनेशन में एक चीज देखी थी कि वेदर, और जो अभी भी स्टिल इस डेफिनेशन में चेंज नहीं हुई, कि इफ देयर इज अ डायरेक्टर, अ कॉमन डायरेक्टर इन टू कंपनीज, और एनी शेयर होल्डर or partner in a company and another entity or between two companies that has more than 20%, they become associate by virtue of the definition contained in the Company Act. तो आपको उनका नाम भी बताना है, associate का भी, related party का भी. आपको basis of relationship भी बताना है, spouse है, children है, common directorship है, related party है या क्या है, और percentage of shareholding जो आपकी कंपनी में इनके हैं. If we actually review all these requirements, so we can analyze the requirements contained in the Code of Corporate Governance and these disclosure requirements, they have been streamlined. अब बड़ा करीब उनको ले आए. In respect of associated companies, subsidiaries, joint ventures or holding companies incorporated outside Pakistan, this needs to be disclosed. Name of undertaking, registered address and country of incorporation. सारी कंपनियों के लिए, यहाँ तक लिस्टेड कंपनीज के लिए, you have to give the basis of association, aggregate percentage of shareholding, including shareholding through other companies or entities, name of CEO, name of principal officer, name of authorized agent, the operational status, and auditor's opinion on latest available financial statement. So if you are a listed company and then you are having such sort of associates, ये आपको सारे का सारा disclose करना पड़ेगा. जो किसी हद तक आप ऑफशोर कंपनीज की बात कर रहे थे, ये रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं जिससे वो डिस्क्लोजर कर्टेल होता है. समरी ऑफ सिग्निफिकेंट ट्रांजैक्शंस एंड इवेंट्स दैट हैव अफेक्टेड कंपनीज फाइनेंशियल पोजीशन एंड परफॉर्मेंस. और उसके बाद लिस्टेड कंपनीज के लिए है कि आपका जो आईपीओ हुआ है उसके बाद आपकी जो अगली फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट आई है उसमें आपने बताना है कि जो प्रीवियसली आपके प्लान थे, जो आप कह रहे थे कि पैसा आएगा तो हमें काम करेंगे, आपने किस हद तक वो काम कर लिया. In financial statements issued after initial or secondary public offerings of securities or issuance of debt instruments, implementation of plans is disclosed in the prospectus offering document with regards to utilization of proceeds shall be disclosed till full implementation of such plans. तो अगर आपको शेयर कैपिटल आ गया और आपने जो कुछ कहा था उसको अभी आप पूरा नहीं कर पाए, तो जब तक पूरा नहीं कर पाएंगे, you continuously disclosing it in your financial statements. Particulars of major foreign shareholders other than natural person holding more than 5% of paid-up capital in the company. तो अगर आपका कोई institutional shareholder है, you will have to disclose all the particulars, इसमें name, address, beneficial owner, legal status, name of the CEO, principal officer, Pakistani resident associated with the shareholders, conditions and compliance. ये भी सारी चीजें आपको ये बतानी पड़ेगी इसके अंदर. In case where company has given loans or advances or has made investments, short-term and long-term in foreign companies or undertaking, following disclosures are required to be made. Name of the company or undertaking with the jurisdiction where it is located. only for the public unlisted company. And as far as it comes to a listed company, names and address of beneficial owner. अभी 10% शेयर होल्डिंग वाला हमने डेफिनेशन में पढ़ा. Amount of loan or investment both in local and foreign currency. Terms and conditions of period for which loans or advances or investment has been made, and then amount of return received. These are the extended disclosure requirements जो कि offshore या दूसरी companies के context में अब 4th and 5th schedule में आना शुरू हो गई है. Increased requirements only for listed companies. अब listed company को ये भी बताना है detail of all the litigations against the investee, the details of the default or the breach, gain or loss in case of disposal of foreign investment. अब अगर हम थोड़ा आगे चलें तो ये अगेन एक बड़ा डिटेल्ड डिस्क्लोजर है जो कि लिस्टेड कंपनीज के लिए इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया है कि दे हैव टू डिस्क्लोज इट. और ये सेल्स रिलेटेड है कि जब आप एक्सपोर्ट सेल्स कर रहे हैं तो आपको अपनी एलसीज और सारी चीजों की डिटेल देनी है. Amount of export sales made in each foreign jurisdiction along with breakup into confirmed LC, contract or other significant categories. Names of company in case of a related party, and for defaulting parties, name, relationships and amount, and brief description of any legal action taken. That means in case of a listed company, this requirement regarding the export sales would have to be given in much detail. Sharia compliant companies and the companies listed on Islamic index shall disclose. ये disclosure आगे हुए हैं और but still I believe there is much room कि इसमें मज़ीद अभी explanations आएगी. Loans and advances obtained as per Islamic mode, and then your bank deposits and bank balances, profits earned from those Sharia compliant deposits, bank balances, revenues earned, gains or losses of dividends, exchange gains, markup paid, relationship with the Sharia compliant bank, and then profit and earned or interest paid on any conventional loan or advance. Unclaimed dividends and unpaid dividends to be shown as a separate line item. अभी it's just a wide guess, maybe कि इसको बाद में requirements को income tax ordinance के साथ या किसी और requirement के साथ link भी कर दिया जाए. Unclaimed dividend and unpaid dividend to be shown as a separate line item on the face of financial statement. This is important because that section which unfortunately we will not be able to cover today, which deals with that awareness fund to be created by the SECP. ये जो unclaimed dividends हैं, unpaid dividends हैं, ये आइंदा से उसमें पास होने लग जाया करेंगे क्योंकि this would be one of the source that would feed that awareness fund to be created by the SECP. Fixed asset where any property or asset is acquired with the funds of the company, not held in the name of the company or not in the possession and control of the company, along with the reason for property or asset not being in the name of the company, and depreciation, description and value of the property, person in whose name and possession or control it is held shall be disclosed. क्योंकि बहुत से मतलब जो there is a very good resource on SECP's website which actually deals with the orders that SECP passes. जिसमें तमाम listed and private या बहुत सारी companies के जो cases आ रहे होते हैं उनमें decision आ रहा होता है. और उसमें एक चीज ये भी थी कि assets which were procured from the funds of a company were either not in the possession of that company or were not being used by that company. तो उसका disclosure audited accounts में भी आने लग जाएगा. If we go to the next bullet, जिसमें there is an addition that whenever there is a revaluation of property, plant and equipment, you have to give the forced sale value as well. अगर हम कभी revaluation की रिपोर्ट देखें तो उसमें दो वैल्यूज आ रही होती हैं, एक नॉर्मल और एक उसमें जो forced sale value है. Usually accounts पे forced sale value नहीं आ रही होती थी. ये usually 10 to 15 और in certain cases 20% कम होती है of the valued amount. So you have to disclose both the fair value and the forced sale value. Requirements to give detailed disclosure of asset disposed of. If the book value exceeds 500,000 rupees, पहले रिक्वायरमेंट ये हुआ करती थी कि जो 50,000 से जिनकी बुक वैल्यू कम है उन्हें वन लाइन आइटम बता दें, जिनकी 50,000 से ज्यादा है उनको सेपरेटली बताएं, तो उन्होंने इसको 500,000 कर दिया. Long term investment made as per the requirements. My mistake here, the reference remained not updated, but in the Companies Act this is the same. And long-term loans and advances with regards to loans and directors made in compliance with the requirements of this ordinance. Again, we'll just be referring to it over here. Companies Act 2017 में a new section has been added which says कि आप जब भी कभी डायरेक्टर्स के साथ कोई भी सेल परचेज करेंगे, that needs to be valued by an expert, and that would always be through a non-cash channel, which means आप सिर्फ बैंकिंग के थ्रू ही कर सकते हैं, कैश वगैरह के थ्रू नहीं कर सकते. तो बेसिकली उसके डिस्क्लोजर्स आ जाएंगे कि डायरेक्टर्स के साथ जो सेल परचेज की गई है उसकी फेयर वैल्यू कैसे सर्टन हुआ और उसके बाद क्या वो कैश इन्वॉल्व था कि कैश इन्वॉल्व नहीं था. The purpose for which loans and advances were made, reconciliation of the carrying amounts, disbursements and payments, loans and advances obtained other than at arm's length, reasons thereof, and for such associates and related parties where such loans are made, name of each associate, related party, the terms, the particulars of collateral, the maximum aggregate amount outstanding at any time during the year, and then provision for the doubtful balance if any, and then the loans and advance. Debt receivable from associates, same, all the details regarding the name, maximum aggregate value, the receivable, its aging, debts written off, provision for doubtful debts, and justification for reversal of provision of doubtful debts. This is something which is of interest. Then, और अगर आप कभी पैसा लोन एंड एडवांस दें जिसमें borrower terms of the repayment for the loan and advance exceeds 1 million rupees, together with the particular of collateral and securities any, you have to disclose everything. So 1 million pretty small limit है, but basically शायद ये discourage करेगा आप ऐसे multiple छोटे-छोटे loans देने से. Restriction on the distribution of reserves, disclosure of treasury shares. Companies Ordinance 1984 में treasury share नहीं होते थे, but जैसे कि हमें पता है IS 33 वाला allow करते हैं, treasury shares आ गए हैं, shareholders voting rights, non-current payable to associates, disclosure of security deposits, legal cases और उनकी proceedings का disclosure है. अगर आप किसी को donation दें एक person को और जो 5 लाख रुपए से ज़्यादा हो, तो आपने उसको explain करना है along with the interest. Management assessment of sufficiency of tax provision. This is important because it basically describes कि management को ये बताना है कि हमने पिछले 3 साल में टैक्स की जो प्रोविजन की थी वो कितनी थी and क्या वो adequate भी थी कि नहीं थी. It's both about the amount and the adequacy. तो comment थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाएगा because अगर हम कभी financial statement देखें तो टैक्स चार्ज के अंदर एक prior year चार्ज आ रहा होता है जो current year में चार्ज हो रहा होता है, तो शायद उसकी rationalization के लिए ये चीज है. Royalties paid to companies, entities, individuals, following name shall be disclosed, name and registered address and relationship with the company or the director. और इस पे royalty paid वगैरह इसलिए भी important है कि अगर हम इससे ज़रा दो चीजों से correlate करने की कोशिश करें तो foreign royalties which are paid जो आप certify कर रहे होते हैं and definitely इसके ऊपर tax rates they are different from the ordinary rates, तो इसीलिए शायद इसका disclosure भी बहुत categorically मांग लिया है. From the today's presentation, unfortunately, I could only cover half of it. I could not cover the portion related to directors. And this is only the financial statement and the disclosure part. How to prepare and file it, and what is the minimum to disclose under the local laws. So, if there are any questions, please.
There are questions, few of them, but you suggest that we still have about 15 minutes. And we can go over by another 15 minutes. You can cover director's portion by half an hour.
Basically, so बहुत सारी चीजें थी, तो I just added a summary of that. Okay. Even this summary is a bit larger, of 3 slides.
3 slides. How much time did it take you to cover it?
5-10 minutes.
I think let's do it, and then if there's time left, we look at it.
Okay. Directors में बहुत सारी changes आई हैं. पहली change ये है कि public interest companies. Now they have to have a female representative on their board. Compliance with the code of corporate governance. Commission would specify it. Directors election invalid by a code on application of 10% shareholders. Previously it was 12.5%, I think. Fresh elections of directors to be held within 30 days in case the member requires requisite shareholding. यानी अगर किसी मेंबर के पास इतने शेयर आ जाएं और उसको लगे कि मैं अब अगर अप्लाई कर दूं तो मैं अपने डायरेक्टर नॉमिनेट करा सकता हूं, जो कि अब इस केस में 10% है. आपके पास जैसे 10% आए यू कैन अप्लाई फॉर अ फ्रेश इलेक्शन, और जब भी आप अप्लाई करेंगे उसके विद इन 30 days कंपनी वुड हैव टू होल्ड द इलेक्शन। इसके आगे फिर सर्टेन रिस्ट्रिक्शन है कि आप उसको मतलब जो शेयर होल्डिंग है उससे बाद में डिस्पोज ऑफ वगैरह नहीं करेंगे। अगली एक रिक्वायरमेंट जो सी है ये बड़ी क्रिटिकल है कि एक डेटाबेस इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स का मेंटेन होगा जिसमें उनके नाम, क्वालिफिकेशन और सब कुछ आ रहा होगा, और आप जब भी कभी इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स को अपॉइंट करेंगे आप उस डेटाबेस में से अपॉइंट करेंगे। आप हमारी जो मर्जी है कि ये मेरा इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर है वो मर्जी कर्टेल हो जाएगी एंड विल हैव टू रिफर टू दैट डेटाबेस। फॉर वेकेशन ऑफ ऑफिस ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स द कंडीशन ऑफ नॉट, अच्छा पहले हुआ करता था कि अगर कोई डायरेक्टर पिछले 3 महीने में सारी मीटिंग्स अगर अटेंड नहीं करता तो उसको हम कहते थे कि ही हैज वेकेटेड द ऑफिस। अब इन्होंने ये कह दिया कि जो कि 3 कंसेक्यूटिव उसमें ना करे आप उसको वेकेट कर देंगे। ये रिक्वायरमेंट थोड़ी सी चेंज हो गई है। नंबर 7 पे है कि एक देयर न्यूमरस ग्राउंड्स ऑन व्हिच अ कमीशन में डिस्क्वालीफाई अ डायरेक्टर। ये पहले नहीं था, दिस इज द न्यू सेक्शन। तो whenever we move on to that part of the presentation we'll have to see कि कमीशन ने वो क्या क्राइटेरिया बनाए हैं जिन पे वो इसको कह सकता है। Quorum of the board includes directors participating by video conference and other audiovisual means. Resolution through circular, this is a new addition कि अगर वो सारे directors किसी भी through circularization एक resolution पास कर लें, यानी आपको किस दिन पहले वाली requirement नहीं है, कोई urgency आ गई है, आप सबको वो resolution पास करें, अगर सारे directors उसको sign कर देते हैं तो that would assume to be कि ये resolution बन गई है, और उसके बाद जब भी वो meeting आएगी that resolution would be made the part of the minutes। पर इसमें एक चीज ये भी है कि अगर resolution to circularization के अंदर डायरेक्टर्स उसको कह दें कि हाँ आई एग्री, तो बाद में आप उसको रिवोक नहीं कर सकते। आपने एक बार कह दिया तो दैट मींस यू हैव अग्रीड टू दैट पार्ट। An important thing has been introduced कि if there are independent directors and non-executive directors of a listed or public interest company and they are able to establish कि जी जो भी कंपनी ने कोई गलत काम किया है जो कि लॉ के मुताबिक नहीं है तो हमारी एट्रीब्यूशन के बगैर है, हमारी नॉलेज के बगैर है, वी वर नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ दैट, तो उनको इंडेमनिटी है, उनको प्रोटेक्शन हासिल है इसके अंदर, बट देन द ओनर्स क्लास दैट दे हैव टू एस्टैब्लिश कि ये उनकी नॉलेज के बगैर हुआ था। लोन टू डायरेक्टर्स, दिस क्लॉज हैज बीन चेंज्ड। पहले बहुत सारे रेफरेंस थे कि प्राइवेट कंपनी दे सकती है घर बनाने के लिए, सर्टेन पर्पसेस के लिए दे सकती है। उन्होंने ऑल टुगेदर इस रिक्वायरमेंट को स्ट्रीमलाइन किया है कि लोन टू डायरेक्टर्स रिक्वायर अप्रूवल बाय मेंबर्स एंड इन केस ऑफ अ लिस्टेड कंपनी इट आल्सो हैज टू बी सैंक्शनड बाय द कमीशन। तो दोनों चीजें हैं, कमीशन भी अप्रूव करे और जनरल मीटिंग के अंदर आप इसको मेंबर से भी अप्रूवल लें कि हम अपने डायरेक्टर्स को लोन्स दे रहे हैं। Chief executive appointed against casual vacancy shall hold office till the office of the next election of directors is due। यानी अगर यूजुअली चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव के बारे में एक नई चीज ये आई है कि जैसे डायरेक्टर्स अपनी पहली एजीएम पे रिजाइन करते हैं ऐसे ही अब से सीईओ भी फर्स्ट एजीएम पे रिजाइन करेगा, उसके बाद वो रीअपॉइंट होगा। से जो नया सीईओ आता है अगर किसी भी वजह से वो बीच में ऑफिस वेकेट कर जाता है तो फिर whosoever is appointed he would be appointed for the remaining term of the CEO office। जब नया डायरेक्टर्स इलेक्शन ड्यू होगा उसके 14 दिन बाद सीईओ का इलेक्शन भी हो जाया करेगा। Chairman of board to be elected within 14 days of election of the board। Review report by the chairman on overall performance now forms part of the financial statements that we discussed earlier। नॉन कैश ट्रांजैक्शंस आप डायरेक्टर्स के साथ नहीं कर सकते अनलेस उनकी प्रायर अप्रूवल आप जनरल मीटिंग में लें। General meetings over here means AGM. It may be UGM as well, I think. General meeting कहा गया। Directors' report and statement of compliance to be approved by the board and signed by the CEO and one director. This signing of the report by another director and approval by the board, these are two new requirements introduced by the Companies Act 2017. The financial statement of a listed company are also to be signed by the CFO. Unaudited financial statement can be filed by private companies। शायद तक नहीं आ सका ये। कमीशन टू एस्टैब्लिश इन्वेस्टर एजुकेशन एंड अवेयरनेस फंड, कुछ कॉन्सेप्ट है इनएक्टिव कंपनीज का वो इंट्रोड्यूस कराया गया है। शरिया कंप्लायंट कंपनीज की सर्टिफिकेशन इंट्रोड्यूस कराई गई है। जिस सेक्शन के बारे में हम बहुत बात कर रहे हैं, एवरी सब्सटेंशियल शेयर होल्डर और ऑफिसर ऑफ अ कंपनी हु इज अ सिटीजन ऑफ पाकिस्तान इंक्लूडिंग ड्यूअल सिटीजनशिप। आप ये नहीं कह सकते हो कि उस मुल्क के नहीं, अगर आप पाकिस्तान के एक्ट के तहत पाकिस्तान के सिटीजन हैं तो वेदर रिजाइडिंग इन पाकिस्तान और नॉट, इफ आपके पास पाकिस्तान का सीएनआईसी है, मैकॉप वगैरह पाइप कहीं पर भी बैठे पाकिस्तानी सिटीजन, आपको इसे पूरा करना पड़ेगा। हैविंग शेयर होल्डिंग इन अ फॉरेन कंपनी शैल रिपोर्ट टू द कंपनी विदिन 30 days। आपकी responsibility to report, the company shall file all such information received by the registrar along with the annual return. Annual return means Form A or Form B. The information at present shall be submitted to the Commission on a special return within 60 days of the commencement of this Act. यानी 31 जुलाई तक सारे लोग इसे कंप्लाई कर रहे होंगे। कुछ और कॉन्सेप्ट से फ्री जोन कंपनीज के, रियल एस्टेट कंपनीज की रेगुलेशंस कुछ टाइट कर दी हैं। पीआईसी पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट कंपनी है जिनके अंदर more than 120 employees हो, अब उनको 2% कोटा देना पड़ेगा for the people who have got certain disabilities। पहले ये किसी लेबर लॉ के अंदर भी कवर्ड था, अब इसको उन्होंने प्रॉपर्ली कंपनीज एक्ट के अंदर भी ले आए हैं। और वैल्यूएशन सिर्फ वो लोग करेंगे, वो वैल्यूअर करेंगे जो कि कमीशन के साथ रजिस्टर्ड होंगे। और एक्सपर्ट की डेफिनेशन में हमने पढ़ा था कि एक्सपर्ट वो होता है जिसको कि कमीशन ने इख्तियार दिया हुआ हो टू इशू एनी सर्टिफिकेशन। तो ये की चेंजेस थी जो डायरेक्टर एंड चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव में थी। आखिरी जो 4-5 आप चेंजेस पढ़ रहे हैं, बेसिकली आई सिलेक्टेड सर्टेन स्लाइड्स जस्ट फॉर डिस्कशन, ये बेसिकली उससे रेलेवेंट है, डायरेक्टर से रेलेवेंट नहीं। सो दिस इज द एंड ऑफ द एग्जीक्यूटिव समरी।
Blazing speed, I must say.
Because there's still like 30-35 slides are left.
Okay. Really? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, I think we still covered about 70 slides, which wasn't tested. So by all means, I think a lot of content covered. But just for the participants who attendees to know, we will continue the directors portion in the next webinar once you're back from your trip. Okay. So I think by the end of the month, if you can spare some time, we can sit down once again and cover the rest of it. Is it? Or we can schedule it on your webinar.
We can cover it. Because in directors, कुछ sections directors के हैं, directors में भी आगे बहुत सारी नई चीजें आ गई हैं। One thing that I could not cover despite that is transactions with related parties. That has been a new thing.
I think we can note that down. Related party transactions in the next webinar. Directors in. Okay, fantastic. I think we still have about 7 to 10 minutes to go. And there are a few questions, so can we take them one by one? By all means, if you want to defer answering a question to the next webinar.
Sure.
SECP is asking, and I hope this is not MMA SECP. It's asking which reporting framework applies to NPOs that are formed as trust. Like I said, it only refers to formed under company's ordinance.
देखिए, अगर आप ट्रस्ट बना रहे हैं तो इसका मतलब है कि आपका जो अकाउंटिंग फ्रेमवर्क है, इधर यू आर फॉलोइंग गैप, जनरल सेपरेट अकाउंटिंग प्रिंसिपल्स, और वॉलंटरली इफ यू वांट टू अडॉप्ट एनी फ्रेमवर्क दैट इज अप टू यू, क्योंकि उसके अकाउंट्स बनेंगे ट्रस्ट एक्ट ऑफ 18 आई थिंक 86 या जो भी है उसके अंडर, एंड ट्रस्ट एक्ट इज बेसिकली नॉट कवर्ड इन कंपनीज एक्ट। तो उसका फ्रेमवर्क वो बताएगा। जो डिस्क्लोजर रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं वो आप जो कंपनीज एक्ट ऑफ एनपीओ है आप एडिशनली उसको ले सकते हैं, बट एसेंशियली दैट वुड बी अंडर द ट्रस्ट एक्ट।
Hashim Khan and Mustafa Khan are asking the same question, saying definition of executive limit is annually or monthly?
Annually. मुझसे तो बहुत ज़्यादा है, 12 लाख।
Fazan Dar is asking what is the relation between deferment of executive and limit enhancement?
What is the difference between
deferment of executive and limit enhancement? It's written def and it's not deferment. Okay, Fazan, can you please elaborate the question? Mumtaz Hassan is saying which assets are included in immovable fixed assets for full schedule purpose?
Land and building, क्योंकि उसमें लोकेशन है और एरिया है।
Hashim Khan is saying name of senior executives, general managers, are to be disclosed in the remuneration note.
देखिए, law is very clear. You have to give the remuneration note about your directors, chief executive, and then executives. तो आप उसको जो भी नाम मर्जी दे दें, if his or her annual salary is 1200,000 or more, he or she is your executive by whatever name he or she is called, the salary is to be.
So no matter what designation is defined by salary. Okay. The next question is from Muhammad Faizan again. What does natural person refer to in that? Natural person.
Us humans.
Okay. Mumtaz Hassan is asking, by answering questions on definitions, you said that principles on Sharia have not yet been defined. Then who's required to provide disclosure on Sharia? I mean, how a company will decide whether it should provide disclosure on Sharia or not.
अच्छा अब देखें ये जो डिस्क्लोजर्स हैं शरिया वाले ये तो आपको देंगे हैं बाकी since the framework is yet to be introduced A and B as the commission has disclosed today के requirements the older requirements of Companies Ordinance 1984 are to be applied as of June 30th 2017 तो maybe कि जब आप अगला 31st December तक के accounts बनाते हैं जिसका कि disclosure आपको 30th April तक देना तब तक कोई चीज आ जाए
Mumtaz Hassan is asking, what is the difference between unclaimed dividend and unpaid dividend if a company has unclaimed dividend filed for over years?
Basically होता ये है कि हम थोड़ा सा इसका प्रोसीजर देखें the company issue the dividend declare the dividend जब आप dividend declare कर देते हैं आप उसको अपनी face of the balance sheet पे liability show कर देते हैं इक्विटी से निकालने के बाद अब हुआ ये कि आपके पास पैसे नहीं है इसलिए आप पे नहीं कर सके now this is unpaid आइडियली ऐसा होता है कि डिविडेंड डिक्लेयर करने के बाद जो प्रीवियस लॉ में भी था कि आप एक सेपरेट डिविडेंड अकाउंट खोलते हैं और आप अपनी मनी उसमें पार्क कर देते हैं और उसमें होता है कि जो जिनके पास वारंट होते हैं वो आते जाते हैं और अपने वारंट इन कैश करवाते चले जाते हैं अब अगर आपने वारंट इशू कर दिया उसके रजिस्टर्ड एड्रेस पे और वो बंदा लेने आ ही नहीं रहा जबकि पैसे पड़े हुए हैं तो नाउ दिस शुड बी योर अनक्लेम्ड डिविडेंड
Mohammed Fazan Dar has asked a similar processing on are unpaid dividends showed under liabilities and financial statements. So I think we just answered that. Abdul Basit Lala is saying, is LNA change applicable to private company?
देखें लॉ जो मैंने अभी आपको बताया इफ जो लिस्टेड कंपनी के लिए था दैट वाज हाइलाइटेड एंड अंडरलाइंड इन रेड अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट इट्स एप्लीकेबल ऑन ऑल टाइप्स ऑफ कंपनीज
Umar Saeed is asking, resolution by circulation has to be signed by all or majority to be effective? All. Adnan Salim is saying, from which date is this act effective? Avoiding what is already effective. Zishan Zafar Iqbal is saying, put here. Zishan, you could watch the recording if you want. There was no audio issue from our end. Ali Beg is saying whether there is a change in the UK company's ordinance too. I think it should answer this question. People are concerned about UK as well, I'm sure. Mohammed Zafar Iqbal is saying, is there a second session for companies ordinance 2016? No. CA 2017. Yes. 2017. Yes. Muhammad Waqar Khan is saying, sir, please explain what you said regarding the last 2 years following one SME framework and turnover increase to level of large companies. How the change of framework happens?
बेसिकली मैं आपको बताता हूँ आप 2017 के अकाउंट्स बनाने लगे हैं और आपको लगा कि आपकी कंपनी का इस साल रेवेन्यू है 1.5 बिलियन फॉर एग्जांपल तो बाय ऑल मींस नाउ दिस इज अ लार्ज कंपनी अब क्या मुझे 2017 का रेवेन्यू देख के से डिसाइड करना है या क्या करना है तो लॉ कहते हैं 17 का रेवेन्यू ना देखो जो प्रीवियस दो कंसेक्यूटिव इयर्स हैं 15 एंड 16 उनका देखो अगर 15 एंड 16 के अंदर आप मीडियम थे तो 17 में भी आप मीडियम का ही डिस्क्लोजर दो आप 17 में उसको लार्ज मत बनाओ क्योंकि इस चीज पे मतलब क्योंकि हो सकता है आपका जो इस साल चेंज आई है वो इस साल चेंज टेम्पररी हो इसलिए लोग कहते हैं द क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ अ कंपनी शैल बी बेस्ड ऑन द प्रीवियस इयर्स ऑफ ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट आप पिछले साल की देखें and the classification of a company can be changed where it does not fall under the previous criteria for 2 consecutive years यानी अगर इस साल आप किसी कंपनी को देखें तो पिछले साल मीडियम थी उससे पिछले साल किसी और फ्रेमवर्क में थी then you would have to see कि वो फॉल किधर कर रही है यानी आप करंट ईयर के फिगर को ना देखें करंट ईयर की क्लासिफिकेशन डिपेंड करेगी लास्ट ईयर के आपके ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स पे
Abdul Basit Zala is saying that Provident Gratuity Funds financial statement have any implications?
देखिए उसका तो सिर्फ डिस्क्लोजर ही आएगा ना क्योंकि मेरा ख्याल है उसका एक अलहदा से लॉ है अब वो लॉ मेरे जहन में नहीं है वो आपको ये कहता है कि आप जो अपने वॉलंटरी ये जो पेंशन फंड एंड प्रोविडेंट फंड इस तरह की चीजें आप उसका ऑडिट करवाएं, और वो ये कहता है कि विद इन 6 मंथ्स आफ्टर 6 मंथली इंटरवल यू हैव टू फाइल द स्टेटमेंट विद द कमीशन. उसकी रिक्वायरमेंट्स डिफरेंट हैं. अगर फॉर एग्जांपल देयर इज अ लिस्टेड कंपनी, पब्लिक अनलिस्टेड कंपनी, एंड फॉर इट्स एम्प्लॉइज इट मेंटेन्स प्रोविडेंट फंड और पेंशन फंड और व्हाटएवर, तो आप उसका डिस्क्लोजर अपने अकाउंट्स में देंगे एज अ फुटनोट कि जो सेपरेट प्रोविडेंट फंड है उसमें ये है.
Okay. Basit's next question is: you have merged false and fixed schedule. How to identify which changes are for private companies?
The law says either you are a public listed company, go to fourth schedule. Other than public listed company, whatever you are, go to fifth schedule. So whether you are a private company, SMC, public listed, public unlisted, for all of them you have to follow the fifth schedule.
Waqar Kazim is asking for a repeat question that's technically here. That please re-explain the adoption of SME framework, and when turnover increases to 1 billion and company is large, how reporting in that particular year will happen.
What was the status of the company during the last year? We'll have to see that.
Arsalan Khan is saying, please share the presentation. We'll do that. Waqar Kazim once again is saying, please do the same question. Daniel Yaqub is saying whether the compliance certificate with company's ordinance is applicable from June 2017, and if yes, what will be the format of the said report?
Which compliance certificate, please again?
Daniel, can you please explain again?
Which compliance certificate?
He just mentioned whether the compliance certificate with company's ordinance. So let's see if he comes back again. Zain bin Tariq is saying, are we ACC members allowed to register ourselves with the commission as valuer/expert? If yes, what is the procedure?
Yet to be notified.
Yet to be notified, and ACCA is in contact with the commission on such issues.
Basically, this is on the commission's hand.
Yeah. Abdul Basit Dada is saying, Hamza Nisa, thank you, appreciate great presentation. That's very good, sir. Zishan Ali is saying, I request you to arrange a second session to cover missing sections of CM17. That's what is planned, and we will announce the date shortly. Sidra is saying, can you please define free zone companies?
I've not covered it over here. That
Next
needs
session.
some explanation.
Waqar Kazim is saying, so, sir, when the new framework adoption happens,
Which new framework?
which new framework? Waqar, please write again. Shalimar Umar Shehzad, is it mandatory for small and medium-sized companies to apply for IFRS for SME 2009?
Yes.
Yes.
क्योंकि भी कमीशन ने वही अडॉप्ट किया. That is the last version.
Muhammad Zafar Iqbal is saying thank you. Hassan Abbas is saying when will I finish? I think 6 o'clock was the finishing time. Is finish in a couple of minutes only. Uswa Raza is saying very informative session. Thank you very much. Daniel is saying regarding laws and regulation. The previous question was. So the more questions coming in. Ooh. Just give me a second. Oops. How was that questions coming in? Alright, Daniel's previous question was whether the compliance certificate with company's ordinance is applicable from June 2017, and if yes, what will be the format of the said report? He's given an explanation saying regarding laws and regulation.
अच्छा, मुझे फुली तो समझ नहीं आई. जितनी समझ आई मैं वो बता देता हूँ. As far as this Companies Act 2017 is concerned, वो अब हमें क्या कह रहा है कि लिस्टेड कंपनी के लिए एक चेयरमैन रिव्यू रिपोर्ट होगी सिर्फ लिस्टेड के लिए, बाकी किसी के लिए नहीं. डायरेक्टर्स रिपोर्ट होगी, उसका उसने कंटेंट दे दिया है. इन दो रिपोर्ट्स के लिए एक लॉ उन्होंने कहा है कि हम इंट्रोड्यूस कराएंगे. इफ आई कैन, this is like that draft auditor reporting obligation regulation. और यहाँ पर वो कहता है कि अगर हम इस चीज को देखें, this part, Statement of Compliance of Board of Directors Orders 2017 and Directors Powers and Responsibilities Regulations 2017. जो ये वाला पार्ट है ना, ये जो दो regulations हैं, ये अभी SECP की तरफ से आनी है.
There is just given another saying statement of compliance.
This is the statement of compliance that the director has to give. अब जो director ने statement of compliance देनी है वो इसके तहत आनी थी. ये देखें ये जो मैंने highlight किया.
Sure.
Okay, so it contains company statement of compliance of Board of Directors Order 2017 and Directors Powers and Responsibilities Regulations 2017. इनके तहत a director is to issue a statement of compliance. अभी ये दोनों regulations SECP ने नहीं निकाली. ये अभी SECP जब देगा, then we shall be seeing कि वो regulation क्या है. But SECP has given a draft regulation कि जब भी statement of compliance आएगी, तो auditor ने उसके ऊपर क्या report देनी है. वो जो उसका content है वो उन्होंने ये दे दी है. अब because this requirement has been deferred, जो कि मुझे लग रहा है कि जो आज circular 17 आया वो ये कह रहा है कि for this 30th June reporting purposes it's going to be Companies Ordinance 1984. इसका मतलब है कि ये जो statement of compliance है ये भी एक साल मतलब 31 दिसंबर तक के लिए defer हो जाएगी. Technically इसका मतलब यही बनना चाहिए. तो once these regulations come, तो इनकी light में directors are going to prepare their statement of compliance.
Okay, now there's a long list of people who are saying thank you. And they're saying excellent presentation. I'll just name them. Okay, this Kazim, Muhammad Bakar Kazim, Uswa Raza, Muhammad Daniel, Zumair Manzoor Mehman, Toki Hussain, Samiullah, Alam Muhammad Farooq Alam, Sheikh Jawad Ahmad, Toki Hussain, Muhammad Vikas Patni, Tariq Mahmood, Samiullah again, Muhammad Zishan, Ali Riaz, Muhammad Daniel Yaqub, Usman Shahid, Muhammad Salman, Zumair Manzoor, Muhammad Zafar Iqbal, and the list continues. So I think it's a huge appreciation. Thank you very much for the session. Just to reiterate, number one, this presentation will be shared with you very, very soon. I think just as we are able to finish the session, we will try to send the presentation out. Number two, the recording of this session, just as it is available on GoToWebinar, which takes a couple of hours to be compiled, we will put it up on Vimeo. And the name of the channel is, I'm just going to type it here. I'm just going to type the name of the channel here. Vimeo.com/ACCA Pakistan. And I'm going to send it to all of you. So you should be able to find the recording of this on this particular channel in a day's time at the most. Number three, certificates. All of you who have attended the session will receive the certificates. I mean, I'm of course not going to send it to those people who have just logged in and logged out, as in 3-4 minutes. I mean, those who have attended the session, we will send a certificate to all of them, okay, whether they are students, affiliates, or members. The continuation of this session, just as Mr. Amin Ali, confirms his availability, and there are more details that are available, we will share the details of the webinar. But thank you very much for your appreciation, for your patience. We know we had some issues while initially while registering people for the session. The limit was set at 1,000, and there were about 500 more people who wanted to register. There were 1,600 people who registered for this webinar, 1600. Yeah, and that's a huge number, right? So I think that is supposed to show how attentive people are to such changes, and I think Mr. Amin Ali has done an excellent service, by bringing in this session and running it for all of us. Thank you all very much. I'm sure you enjoyed the session. If there are any questions left, Mr. Amin Ali can be found in Kashmir for the next few days. No, not Kashmir. No. Right. So, can you sir share your email address if some of them can approach you or contact you for any questions? I mean, I know you're a very busy person, but I'm sure some members would like to be in touch with you afterwards.
Officially, I mean, not really. It's you can always contact me on my official email ID. It's Amin AMIN.ALILE at Crow Harvard. It's my son's name. CROWEHORWATH.PK.
Amin.ali at crowharvard.pk. Send to all. So I've just sent the email address of our worthy trainer to all of you. You can note it down. And that's all from the newsroom. Till our next session.
Thank you all.
Thank you all, man. Thank you all very much. Thanks a lot.